Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Today, what we have going on is breaking news. Alan Jackson steps down as Nick Reiner's attorney. Why on earth would he do this? What do you think? We're going to go over that. I have a couple suspicions as well, but from what Alan Jackson is saying, it's hard to say. I mean, is it money related? Could it be the Slayer statute related? What is it? We'll go over it though. I'm going to remain single forever. Oh, that's good, Ty. Let's see here. But let's jump into this here. This is Popcorn Planet, and I skipped the first 50 minutes of this because the beginning, they were just kind of going over what they thought might be happening. And then there's this. So you're going to see it right now.
And incomplete. And we are currently waiting for Alan Jackson to speak to the media. My understanding was originally that this was going to be happening almost an hour ago. But clearly things have been delayed. I don't know what's going on. And we are currently waiting, and we will bring that to you first. And AP is also still pooping itself on these streams. They'll probably start they'll start another one. They'll start another one. This has been happening all day. I don't know what AP is doing.
What they're waiting for here is Alan Jackson's press conference after he steps down.
I hope you guys are okay over there.
This all started, I can play this clip while we're waiting. This was what TMZ, I guess this is where a lot of people were getting this information.
Nick Reiner's murder trial has been derailed. We have learned that Alan Jackson, as I speak right now, the hearing has not started, but Alan Jackson will go into court and he will withdraw from the case. We are told that no plea will be entered. A public defender is going to be appointed. Now, that doesn't mean the public defender is going to handle this case from this point forward. Based on what I know, there is a real chance another lawyer is going to come in and take the case. As for why Alan Jackson is withdrawing, we know the family is going to issue a statement at the end of the hearing today. So take a look at that. But Alan Jackson, who famously represented Karen Reed recently, where she was found not guilty for allegedly killing her boyfriend, Alan Jackson will no longer be handling the Reiner case. Now, something else that we've reported is that Nick Reiner could likely plead not guilty by reason of insanity. As we reported, he was diagnosed with a form of schizophrenia called schizoaffective disorder. And in the month before...
Schizoaffective disorder, that is more of a cluster A thing, schizoaffective, as opposed to regular schizophrenia. Let's look that up to be sure. Cluster A. So, we have paranoid personality disorder, schizoid personality disorder, and schizotypal personality disorder. But they said schizoaffective. I'm not sure which they would consider that. Maybe they'll go over it.
The murders of Rob and Michelle Reiner, Nick's meds were off, and it sent him off the rails. So the defense of not guilty by reason of insanity has worked before. Not a lot, but it has worked where somebody does not understand the nature and quality of what...
So, Anne, are they saying it wrong then, calling it a disorder? Because he said schizoaffective disorder, which is what confused me. Main is schizophrenia, secondary is mood, is not in cluster A. So is it a disorder or no? It's important to get the language right about these things.
What they've done, and that well could be something that is pleaded here, because based on what we know, it is likely that they're not going to simply plead not guilty here because of the amount of evidence that points to Nick Reiner as the person who killed his parents. So right now, Nick Reiner will not enter a plea.
So this is what schizoaffective disorder is. It is a serious mental illness blending symptoms of schizophrenia, like hallucinations and delusions, and a mood disorder, major depression or bipolar mania, requiring treatment with therapy and medication to manage symptoms like distorted reality, intense mood swings, and difficulty functioning, often misdiagnosed initially, but manageable with integrated care. The symptoms: psychotic symptoms, that's the schizophrenia part, hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking and speech, unusual or bizarre behavior, mood symptoms, depression or mania, depressive type, intense sadness, loss of interest, fatigue, changes in sleep appetite, suicidal thoughts, bipolar type, manic episodes with high energy, less need for sleep, racing thoughts, grandiosity, irritability, risky behaviors, or mixed episodes. So the schizoaffective bipolar type and schizoaffective depressive type. But notice, this is not what they said before. They just said schizophrenia before.
There will be a public defender. I don't think the public defender is going to be there for long, although I don't know that. And it is possible.
Say that.
But the family is going to explain why this has happened. Alan Jackson may well speak after the hearing today, and we will live stream that if he does. But right now, the Nick Reiner case is stalled.
So there you go. That was TMZ sort of got the tip off first. Oh, okay. Sorry, we're live.
Relation is in print.
Sorry for the delay. Here we go.
Defender to step in. They've already been appointed. Nick Reiner.
Okay, look at the media following him. Here we go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Excuse us. Yeah, right here. Good morning. As you know, my name is Alan Jackson. This morning, I had to withdraw as Nick Reiner's counsel. Circumstances beyond our control, but more importantly, circumstances beyond Nick's control have dictated that, sadly, it's made it impossible for us to continue our representation of Nick. I'm legally and I'm ethically prohibited from explaining all the reasons why. I know that's a question on everybody's mind. We expect the public defender to step in. They've already been appointed and very capably protect Nick Reiner's interests as he moves forward through the system. But be clear.
And the big part was he said it's out of Nick's control. So what does that mean? Does it mean the family was paying and they withdrew? Does it mean the state of California and the Slayer statute has somehow stepped in here and some part of the Rob Reiner estate was paying for it and the California statute said, no, we're not going to allow that to happen? Or is it just simply money related by Alan Jackson? We don't know yet. But what do you think, chat?
Be very, very clear about this. My team and I remain deeply, deeply committed to Nick Reiner and to his best interests. In fact, we know, we're not just convinced, we know that the legal process will reveal the true facts of the circumstances surrounding this case, Nick's case. You know, a lot's been printed of late, over the last 3 weeks. A lot has been printed about Nick, printed about his family, printed about the circumstances. Speculation is in print. On December 15th, in the early morning hours, I was in New York at the time, and I got a call. Me and my team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3 weeks, we have devoted literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his interests. We've investigated this matter top to bottom, back to front. What we've learned, and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that. Print that.
Passionate performance here by Alan Jackson. But is it just that? A performance? Or is he that passionately convinced that he's not guilty? Or is there something else going on here? My vote would be C. Something else is going on here.
We wish him the very, very best moving forward. And that's all I have today.
What? What? What?
I'm so confused. Oh my gosh.
Print that. Take that to the bank. What? I want Chris back.
Okay. Now, oh, I'm so confused. I'm so confused. Okay. Again, speculation, opinion, not an attorney. Here's my thing. We have questions about whether or not Alan can continue as an attorney. He seems very passionate about this, right? If he truly believed that Nick was not guilty, I don't feel like the money would be a reason for him to leave, because he would prove it, and at the end of it all, they'd be able to demand payment, and that would be that. And he also would make international headlines for defending this person and fighting this, extreme and very amplified case for this person. And it's like it would benefit him in the long run. So why he would say that makes me wonder okay, I know he can't tell us the reason, but that makes me think that it is ethical, or there is something else going on that, again, we don't know, because there's a lot more about this case that we don't know.
Good morning.
I was trying to see if I could get Chris or Ron to join us quick, because I want to record and post, I guess, the breaking, because Nick Reiner not guilty, guys. He's not guilty of murder.
So let's break it down here. So if Alan Jackson really thinks he's not guilty, and it wasn't about money in any way, don't you think he would still want to be on the case to prove that point? If not just for notoriety, because it's the most popular case in America right now. But does he think maybe he's just not going to be able to get him off on a not guilty by reason of insanity? He's guilty, and he doesn't want that smudge on his record? Is that really what it is? Also, what you're going to learn also is Nick Reiner in court, when they were at the judge, they went to the judge, and Alan Jackson said, I'm stepping down. There's going to be another woman that steps up in my place. It's a public defender who has 19 years experience. And what they said Nick did was, they said Nick smirked in court at this, according to the New York Post.
This just in. I'm sorry. What? What? What the? What on earth are they talking about? All right, sorry, hold on. They're texting back before I tape this.
Yes, and you're correct. Schizoaffective was one form of schizophrenia, and affective means mood as well. It's just not what they were saying before. They were only saying schizophrenia before. That was the point I was making. They didn't say about the schizoaffective part.
Gosh.
Sorry. Okay, here I go.
Mr. Diva just said, oh, you would work for free. No, I'm not saying that I would work for free. What I'm saying is that a big part of when you are a famous attorney is the exposure that you get. And
100%.
if he believes that it's not guilty, then absolutely Nick would likely qualify for other payouts, etc. So he would eventually get paid if he believed it that strongly. That's all I'm saying.
If he got Nick Reiner off, that's better than
Oh my
money.
God.
And again, even with the schizophrenia diagnosis, I'm still waiting for a doctor to confirm that anyway. Whether it's schizophrenia, schizoaffective, fill in the blank. Until I hear a doctor say to someone at court or whenever, oh yeah, by the way, I diagnosed Nick with this, and we are prescribing him this medication for this. Until we hear that, I don't know if we can truly believe what we hear. It's all it's what the defense is saying. And is what the defense is saying always true? Of course not.
That's
100%.
better than money. Like that, everybody in the world, he gets more money based on his wins. And if he's that confident in the win, why wouldn't you want that case? Because I'm sure he's going to get some money. It's not like he's not going to get no money. There must be some money that they can get. I don't buy that for a second. So, I mean, honestly, that could very well be it. This is all about the money, and he's got to save face, which he's doing. Try to say, yada yada yada. And the reality of Alan. Well, let's record it because I don't think I can get the lawyer. And let's do this as I think I'm going to post this as a second video because this is nuts. I want that Chris video to exist, and I want this to be its own thing. So
YouTube makes a good point in the comments here. What people don't say is very important. And Alan Jackson did not say we need to be looking for the real killer. He did not say that. So what people don't say can be very telling. So when he says not guilty and really passionately exclaims it like he did, to me, without saying we need to find who really did it, he's just emphasizing the not guilty by reason of insanity part. To me. But what do you think, chat?
Here we go. Ready, Kim? 3, 2, 1.
Right here.
Hold on. 3. We're going to tape this because this is breaking coming in. This is absolutely bonkers. Nick Reiner's attorney has quit, and this press conference he did is bonkers. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signal. We're live. We're covering a lot of this updates with Kim. I wanted to clip this out and I wanted to report this separately because we did an amazing breakdown with Christopher Melcher, but we were waiting for this press conference from Alan Jackson to explain why he's quitting, why he's off the case. He said in court, I think it's important we show this right here.
Mr. Reiner's understanding and consent would ask to withdraw his counsel's record based on the conversation that we've had in chambers and the explanation we've provided to the court in chambers. We feel that we have no choice at this juncture but to withdraw his counsel and ask to be relieved.
We have no choice but to withdraw and ask to be removed. What could give them no choice? The fact that he thinks he's guilty, would that give him no choice? No way to get him not guilty by insanity? Not getting paid? Is that what's going to give him no choice? Is there somehow a conflict of interest here? What would the conflict of interest be? I'm not sure. Or is the Slayer statute giving them no choice? Although I'm not sure what would make that ethically not right to say if it was that. But I'm not sure.
They have no choice at this juncture. With Reiner's permission, they have asked the counsel, they've asked to be withdrawn as counsel. So that's what they told the court inside. We were waiting a while, and here's what Alan said outside the courtroom.
As you know, my name is Alan Jackson. This morning, I had to withdraw as Nick Reiner's counsel. Circumstances beyond our control, but more importantly, circumstances beyond Nick's control have dictated that, sadly, it's made it impossible for us to continue our representation of Nick. I'm legally and I'm ethically prohibited from explaining all the reasons why.
All the reasons noted, reasons, multiple reasons, money. That's my guess, but we'll continue.
I know that's a question on everybody's mind. We expect the public defender to step in. They've already been appointed and very capably protect Nick Reiner's interests as he moves forward through the system. But be clear, be very, very clear about this. My team and I remain deeply, deeply committed to Nick Reiner and to his best interests.
Because he has to. It's his client. You can't crap on your client. You would ever want to hire a lawyer who craps on their client.
In fact, we know, we're not just convinced, we know that the legal process will reveal the true facts of the circumstances surrounding this case, Nick's case.
Ooh, tell us more.
You know, a lot's been printed of late, over the last 3 weeks. A lot has been printed about Nick, printed about his family, printed about the circumstances. Speculation is in print. On December 15th, in the early morning hours, I was in New York at the time, and I got a call.
And so hold on 1 second here. I agree with this, Cheryl. In my opinion, a mental health expert witness retained by the defense in Nick Reiner's case is likely to frame any diagnosis in a way that aligns with the defense's strategy. Of course, if the defense is calling them, absolutely. They're not going to have someone go up there that's not going to align with their strategy, that's for sure.
My team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3 weeks,
I love how he wants to be applauded for dropping everything to represent one of the biggest murder cases in Los Angeles in a while. Oh my God, of course you did. You don't get a pat on the back for that. What lawyer wouldn't have done that? My God, sorry.
We have devoted literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his interests. We've investigated this matter top to bottom, back to front.
What about side to side? Did they do side to side?
What we've learned, and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder.
Pursuant to the law of California, Nick Reiner is not guilty.
So let's go over this too. So who do you think called Alan Jackson when he was in New York about this case? And who would call them that would make them drop everything they're doing? Was it the Reiner family? Jake and Romy? Was it a friend? Was it who? I'm not sure. Did Nick Reiner call himself? I highly doubt that. But what do you think?
Of murder? What?
Print that. Print that. We wish him the very, very best moving forward. And that's all I have today.
Print that, Kim. Wow, he came out aggressive. What on earth? How is this going to help matters? That's where I'm stuck right now. I don't see how this help matters at all because he doesn't give a reason. And I would think he's legally and ethically allowed to say it's a conflict of interest, which is what Christopher Melcher thinks happened, or it's money. Those are the two options that Chris did. I implore you to watch our video from this morning, our live feed, which we trimmed down to give you the best parts in Chris's analysis, where he, spoiler alert, those are the two main things. But he had a lot of other interesting stuff to say. But so check out that video as well. But we were waiting for this press conference, and I got to say, this only made me question more things, Kim. This just made me question more. This felt like a guy trying to save face because he's no longer in the case, and he's got to support his client because he can't not. Otherwise, that would be massively crazy. This is the new public defender who's stepping up to represent him next. And so focus on, I mean, she's good luck. This is going to be interesting, but clearly we're not going to get anything. On top of that, the family did make a comment, which we reported before. Spokesman for the Reiner family said they have the utmost trust in the legal process and will not comment further on matters related to legal proceedings. So they're not giving anything. They're not even trying to show, are they supporting their brother? We don't know. It's a complete question mark as to what's happening. But man, that what he just did there to me, and we'll watch her press conference next in the live. So if you're still watching live, don't go anywhere. But did this help for you, Kim? Did this give you more faith? Do you want to print that? Do you feel like that's true? What do you think, Kim?
I've been laughing because the chat is just making so many comments about the print that comment of like, print it where? On a t-shirt? Print it where? And To me, what I am the most confused about is I personally, looking at everything, don't think that this is about money. And I could be very wrong. This is my speculation, in my opinion, and I am not an attorney. But I feel like if you truly, truly believe, if Alan truly believed that Nick was innocent and could win this, I don't know why he would let it go. Because I feel like if it was a money issue, if it's a question of he's not going to be able to afford it because he's been cut off from trust fund or inheritance or whatever it is, if you can prove not guilty, then yeah, the money will come. So you put your money where your mouth is and you defend and you do it, because the exposure on this case would be massive for him. So I have a lot of questions about this. I really want to hear more legal analysis and breakdown from professionals, because this, I don't know if this was just a performance or if this actually does tell legal experts some more information that we're not picking up on. One of the things I've mentioned throughout the live is the clip of the court hearing itself. We were able to see some footage of what happened today in court, not live, but after. It was very heavily edited. There's a lot of jumping around, and my personal belief on that is likely because the case has been sealed by the LAPD. So there's a lot of information that, to protect the investigation, protect the jury, etc., that we can't know about. But it definitely feels like there is a whole lot of information that the public is not aware of right now. And that makes it really difficult to be able to really come to any conclusion, because.
And that could be true. I'm sure there's things the public doesn't know, but anything that is possible to know, I think Alan Jackson would know. And then maybe he would think, you know what, considering all this evidence, I don't think I can really get a good outcome here for Nick. I think it's above what I can do. I don't think I can get him not guilty by reason of insanity. There's just too much damning evidence here that he wasn't insane during the time of the incident, during the time of the crime. And so rather than drag this out in a losing case, maybe he said, nah, I'm just going to cut my losses now. But I would never rule out the money aspect either. I would never rule out the financial aspect. I was contemplating before, well, maybe if he was even doing this pro bono before I learned that he was on retainer. And I said, well, he might try to do it pro bono just to get notoriety, just to get his name out there. But what good is doing something pro bono if you're just going to lose? Does that really help you that much? I don't know.
We don't know what's going on.
Well, I think that smartly, they're being very careful, right? Because
Yes.
This seems like a clear-cut case. It does, but they have to be careful, because if it's not, that's how they can get off.
Yes.
And so it's interesting how aggressive he came out, because if anything, I'm not buying it. This all feels like PR spin. This feels like they couldn't afford it, or he realized this was a not a good case to take, and he found a way to get out, which, a powerful lawyer, I would assume, could find a conflict of interest or a reason and sort of just put it out there vaguely and figure out a way to tap out if they really wanted to. And so the fact that he's not representing, to me, means he wasn't doing a good job per the Reiner family, right? Something negative where he's pushed out, or he's like, I'm tapping out because good luck, you guys. This is, you're going down. And also you don't have money to pay me. Money has something to do with this, without a doubt. It has to. He got his press. He got a little bit of press of it. He's checked out. To me, something smells fishy here, but this is a breaking story. We will keep you updated as it happens. We're live. We're going to watch more from the press feed, learn more about Kimberly Green, who's now stepping in. So this case is just getting started, folks. Make sure if you're watching live or on the replay, can you verify you're subscribed? Hit that bell for alerts so you get those notifications when you do.
This is a very good point, Hannah. I totally agree with this. Schizoaffective disorder is more difficult to treat because it is partial schizophrenia and partial bipolar, and the medication has to equal the balance of the right amount of how much schizophrenia. Absolutely true. The more variables there are, the more difficult something will be to treat. And the bipolar part, when there's also schizophrenia, like that's where you would need a mood stabilizer, maybe an antipsychotic. But the depression part, you'd be tempted to give them an SSRI, SNRI, or what's the one that Wellbutrin is? A ND. Yeah, an NDRI. But the problem is when you're bipolar, you definitely need an antipsychotic / mood stabilizer in there, or you're going to cycle through the manias and depressions. It just becomes difficult It's a lot to manage. And this is all provided that it's true.
Smash the thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps the algorithm. I know a lot of people aren't getting the alerts, so make sure you go do that. We got a lot more coming your way here on Popcorn Planet. Okay, I'm going to post it up. But Kim, let's watch. Actually, and I got someone's at my door. I have to go answer the door quick too. Guys,
Okay.
don't go anywhere. We got a lot to cover. But Kim, I want you to, as I'm also loading this, what are your thoughts on this being a PR spin? Do you think that's ultimately what this is? Or do you think, looking at it objectively too, could we actually be wrong and this really just was a conflict of interest? I mean, it's not completely out of the wheelhouse, right? What do you think?
Absolutely, it could be a conflict of interest. It could be a number of things, and that's part of why, like, my hope is that over the next few days, and please let me know in the chat if you guys would be interested in this, if we get different opinions from different lawyers, different experts, and try to find out what the heck is going on, because I have way more questions now than I did this morning. We just got a super chat. Thank you so much for Anita Frost Bengalis, who said, no one has access to Rob and Michelle's individual estates, bank accounts, etc. The will hasn't even been filed with the court yet. Even the judge would have had to allow the money to be used. Nick never had his own money. I mean, I can't confirm that. I'd be interested to know where you.
And here's the thing. Anytime you add things like meth on top of the mix, it's just an awful combination, especially if you have bipolar and schizophrenia, the schizoaffective. Not good. Not good. Not like I said before, though. I can definitely still see him being undiagnosed on the spectrum. And I can definitely still see him having something like vulnerable narcissism. That's possible. I'm not guaranteeing that, but I still think that could be the case. And also, I think this is telling too. If you look at the picture I included of Nick in the thumbnail, much more fuller in the face. But if you look at the recent court sketches of Nick, much more thin, much more frail. And what does that speak to? That speaks to methamphetamine use, if you ask me. It doesn't speak to someone who's taken their antipsychotics as prescribed, because Seroquel and Zyprexa, they make people gain weight, not lose weight. Now, but with meth, certainly one of the best appetite suppressants out there for sure.
Found that information if you want to share that, because I can definitely look into that. But it is definitely an interesting concept. Unfortunately, I think this is going to have a lot to do with the will, with California law. There's been a lot of talk about the Slayer statute, I think it's called. So we'll find out more about that as time goes on. Just looking here. Also, thank you so much I'm trying to see your name. I'm trying to see it. Hang on. Jane Gertston, I'm so sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Thank you so much for the super chat coming through. Loophole in the law that can exonerate Nick, or question mark? I have no idea. I'm wondering if what he said was that, like he said that in reference to the potential.
So Jimmy asked in the chat, why do I think he might have been undiagnosed on the spectrum? Well, two reasons. One, I was, and so that I think that makes me a little more, I'm attuned to that a little bit more as well. But I listened to him in the interviews that he did, especially the ones in front of his dad, and it comes off as just like that awkward, stilted speech. And even in some of the videos he did with Romy, and then the complete difference in how he sounded on the Dopey podcast, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he was under the influence in those Dopey podcasts. But just the energy and the vibe and his kind of humor about the dog. So people would say that's his humor, but I don't really buy that. I don't buy that was humor. I didn't think he was really playing a character or joking at all in that case. He sounded dead serious to me. But that's why I get that sense. Now, does that mean it definitely is that? No, it's not definitely. He very well could be schizoaffective. Yeah, certainly not impossible. But again, I want to see what a doctor says. But also to note, as we said before, any defense or any doctor the defense calls, they're going to try to give them a favorable ruling. That's almost without a doubt. Now, again, the doctors, though, they still have to be ethical, right? They're not going to be able to lie. But here's the thing. Among several professionals, you can get several different opinions sometimes on what someone's diagnosis is. And there might be a time where they try to shop around almost to get the diagnosis that they want. That's not impossible either.
Plea of insanity, that he's arguing that, if California law says that somebody that is this way is not capable of being held accountable for this, then that's it. And so if that's what he believes, that's what he believes. So it will be interesting. Yeah. Integrated Travel Solutions 23 said, I'm a paralegal, 35 plus years of experience. Thank you so much for sharing. If a client doesn't pay, we withdraw from the case, period. The other reason you can withdraw is if the client is not cooperating with the attorney. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Let me see here. Yeah, there's a few people saying that he didn't leave any money to the kids. And this is the thing, like, until I actually see the documents, until it's announced like from the family, I'm hesitant to believe any of that stuff, because a lot of people are saying a lot of things right now. So we'll see. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm just checking with the chat, you guys. Now, I am seeing some people saying maybe he doesn't want to plead that way. Maybe Nick wants to go in a different direction. Is he just going to plead not guilty, period? Is there going to be like a whole other investigation? I don't know. I have seen some people saying like maybe he was framed. I find that to be very suspicious, and I feel like that would have been something that would have leaked a bit louder if that was indeed going to be a defense. I think right now it's either going to be guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity is the likely outcome here. However, if a new attorney is potentially coming in, because one of the things that Harvey Levin said in his video that we played earlier in this stream is that if there is potentially another lawyer coming in, that could change things, right? Because you get a new lawyer, get a new legal team, they may look at the facts and go, we're gonna try this, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna look at this. The other thing I would say I think that is important is that there's probably a lot of testing going on right now to do with evidence. So unfortunately, I have to watch my language here, everybody, and I hate using code words like this, but we are on YouTube and I have to play by their rules. But I'm gonna say there will probably be a lot of forensic testing, things like red liquids, potentially DNA testing to be able to link things together, talk screens, etc. And those things don't all happen overnight. They can take time to process. And once those pieces all come in.
And Jimmy was asking me in the chat, if I'm undiagnosed on the spectrum, why do I seem as different than Nick? And the answer to that question is, I mean, I take a lot of supplements. Like, it's a pretty intense routine and I have to do a lot to manage it. But if I lost all of my supplements tomorrow, I would be a lot more awkward. I would be a lot more, or a lot less charismatic, a lot less fluent with my words. I wouldn't be able to be as articulate. I wouldn't be able to pronounce my words as good either. So again, when people don't know that version of me, it might surprise them to hear that now. But if I lost my whole routine, yeah, I'd be hurting. Absolutely. But I'm just grateful I found a routine that works for me, because I know how painful it is not having that routine. I know what I always say is, and I said this to Dr. Carey, the ceiling of my potential lowered. That's what it was. So when I had that, the ceiling of my potential was lowered. But now that I have something to manage it, I feel like my ceiling has raised and I can meet my full potential. And that's one of the biggest things I couldn't accept before. I couldn't accept thinking I have this great version of me in here that it's just getting blocked. It's getting blocked by the anxiety, getting blocked by the autistic traits, etc. But with my routine, I've been able to unlock it, or at least close to it. And for me, It's what I've chosen. Now, if people were to see my routine, they might say, well, Jared, you're crazy to do all of this. And I would say, am I? Am I crazy? Or do I realize we only got one life to live, so we may as well try to make the best of it? So, to each their own, though.
Maybe the things change again. We know that everything with this case right now is sealed, and that's probably the most frustrating thing to me right now. And I understand it. They want to protect the jury. They want to not influence them. They want Nick to be able to have a fair trial. If it's prejudiced, then he won't, and that's a big problem that could be fought. So they have to be really, really careful. But what it does mean is that we're going to be missing a lot of pieces. And when people are missing pieces, there's assumptions and there's, oh, I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so, and they told me this, and they told me this, and they told me this. But ultimately, what matters is what is being submitted into that courtroom and what is being determined as evidence in that courtroom. Now, Alan Jackson did say public defender. I think one question I have that is it's really weighing on me right now is that if indeed they are looking at another attorney, why would they not have obtained said attorney and then transferred attorney? Or is it normal that it has to go from attorney to public defender to attorney? There also seemed to be a bit of a Jade of Norway. I'm sorry. Why can't Kim get my name right ever? Are you the one that sent in the super chat? Because now I'm seeing your name differently. It's coming up different in the chat. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be rude. I apologize. Just the process of whether or not how the attorneys transfer, the way that works. And it sounds like Alan Jackson was very passionate about protecting certain things that need to stay with the defense. And they were willing to hand over things specifically.
So this is a good question, Tennis. I'm not sure the answer to this. I thought to get a public defender, you have to be indigent, which means you have little money and little assets, or no money and no assets. I would think so. I would think that's true, but don't quote me on that. Which would mean, so Nick has a public defender now. And to me, that would mean what? Nick doesn't have money and he doesn't have access to his family's money. What else could it mean?
To the defense and the defense alone. So I don't know what all of that means. There's a lot of questions. Elizabeth, I am seeing that you said I read it went to all of Rob's charities. See, I've seen that, but I haven't actually found it from a credible source at this time. So I'd love to know where you read it, because I am curious. I'm curious. Yeah, Anita just said in California, everything is open record. It's just too soon to release it. It will come out far out in advance of the trial with a few exceptions. And yeah, I do believe that is the way that it is. And I know you have a lot of experience, so that would make sense. But the big thing that I have seen, and I don't have control over the whole interface, or else I'll be pulling up an article for you right now. But over the Christmas break, it was announced that the LAPD has sealed everything. And
that's what we went over a few days ago. All the reports are sealed. And this is important by Cheryl here. In the United States, a person qualifies for a public defender when the court determines that they are financially unable to hire private counsel and that the case involves the risk of incarceration. That makes sense to me. Thanks for sharing that, Cheryl.
A lot of documents are not going to be released to the public at this time, and the date in which those will be released is up in the air. The other thing I did want to let you guys know that I thought was interesting, because I know we're going to have questions about it. And let me pull up the exact quotes, because I want to make sure that I get it right. USA Today put out an article early this morning talking about what to expect today. And there was some information in there that I thought was important. Where is it? Okay. Where did it go? I'm so sorry. Basically, what it said is that it's going to be up to the judge to decide whether or not the Reiner case is going to be televised. According to the communications office for the Superior Court of Los Angeles County, where Reiner's case was filed, the judge may actually make a ruling on that at the arraignment itself. So it sounds like the judge did decide that it was okay for everybody to see the clips after and they were edited. But it does sound like they are not allowed to be taking images or photos of Reiner himself that could be sent out to the public. So we're likely not going to see him in any of these arraignment situations, unless the judge changes their mind.
Should we watch the press conference? I'm back. I guess she came out. Did she say something?
So good question in the chat. What do you think Nick Reiner is thinking about all this? Well, we know he did the smirk, and maybe a narcissistic smirk perhaps when Alan Jackson resigned from the case. But considering Nick's mental state before this and maybe his addiction, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking right now, honestly. There might be a part of him that kind of likes the excitement and the attention, as regardless of the awful reason he's getting it. And in a way, let's unravel it here, right? Remember him saying on the Dopey podcast, he wanted an identity. He wanted to be the bad boy druggie. And maybe in a weird, perverse way, now this is his identity. He's the guy that killed his parents. He's the guy that committed the most famous crime of 2025. So there might be a part of him that's like hanging his hat on that, perhaps. Now, is it possible that he's full of remorse and guilt and shame? I'm not ruling it out, but somehow I don't think so. But what do you think, chat?
Seem like? Here, let's see what she had to say.
Or is she just going to go?
And she's standing in front of the mics.
Well, one more thing. So Ann says he's not happy in jail. Yeah, I mean, no one's happy in jail. But also, think of it like this. Most people don't know this. But did you know most school shooters, they have female fan clubs and they write to them in jail? Did you know that? Every school shooter has female fan clubs. So which is ironic, of course, right? When they say, oh, a big reason why they did it is they were incels and whatever. They do their little crime, which is not a little crime at all. It's a big crime. And then a bunch of them have admirers that are women. So again, that's not to say they're happy where they are, but there could be other parts of it they like.
What do I call that? Nick Reiner,
sure.
not
Ricardo
guilty.
Garcia, Los Angeles County Public Defender. I'm here with Kimberly Green, the Deputy Public Defender assigned to the Reiner case. I want to say that on behalf of the entire Public Defender's Office, we are incredibly sorry and understand the pain and suffering that the Reiner family is going through at this time, as well as the entire Los Angeles community.
Before he goes on, someone mentioned serial killers have the same kind of fanfare. And Dr. Salerno, who I've interviewed many times, he's actually coming back on the show in a couple weeks. So we're going to go over his new book, Cruelty by Nature. But he was on a documentary, a Hulu documentary about Ted Bundy. And Ted Bundy back then was a massive celebrity. There were all sorts of women who were like goo goo gaga over him. They were like so excited to be in his presence. There was this disconnect of what he was accused of doing and then how people perceived him. But I think even after he was convicted, there was still people that said, no, he wasn't guilty, and they defended him. So it's an interesting thing what happens.
The Public Defender's Office and the entire staff, our hearts at this time go out to the entire family. We hope that the community will also understand that this is a challenging time for the entire legal process. We ask for your patience, your understanding as we navigate this process through the legal system, and that we will be available as we can.
And Cheryl is absolutely right about this. It's called hybristophilia. The phenomenon you're referring to is commonly called as hybristophilia, a documented psychological pattern in which some people, most often women, feel attraction to individuals who commit violence or notorious crimes, especially murder. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. People don't talk about it much, but it's absolutely true.
To address your questions when appropriate. Thank you. We learned, I believe, last night or yesterday that we were being substituted in.
Last night.
I'm going to let Ms. Green answer that.
Briefly this morning, but we haven't had a chance to discuss anything. I spoke to Mr. Reiner briefly this morning. He was understanding that there was going to be a change in council. We haven't had any in-depth conversations. I have not. We'll discuss that with Mr. Reiner and see how to proceed. Not at all. It's not uncommon for private counsel to turn over cases to us, so no, but nothing about that would complicate the situation. I have to talk to him for only 30 seconds, so no, I have no idea. I only spoke to Mr. Reiner for about 30 seconds this morning. I have no comment about it. I have not. We've had no contact with the family. I don't think they were aware that this was going on until this morning.
Oh, wow.
At this point in time, Ms. Green will look into the case. We'll speak with Mr. Reiner. And if you have any further questions, reach out to our media team once we have more information ourselves. This just happened today, and my understanding is he was aware of it. Ms. Green spoke with him, as you heard. And as soon as we have more information that we can share, we will share it.
Thank you. No further questions at this time. Thank you.
I don't think she was supposed to say that. I don't think she was supposed to say
What's
that.
Further questions
What
to our media.
specifically?
The family, we have not spoken to the Reiner family.
They did not know about this until this morning?
Yeah, that's crazy.
What?
Well, I thought she said they didn't speak at all.
I have to talk to him for only 30 seconds, so I have no.
So the Reiner family, what they said was really short, sweet, and to the point. We trust the legal process to do its job. The end. Now, it's telling also what they didn't say, right? They didn't say, oh, we want Nick to get the best defense that he could ever possibly get. We know he didn't commit this awful crime. No, we just trust the legal process. What does that sound like? In a departure from what they sounded like they were saying the other day when they were blaming the doctors, this seems like they want the prosecution to do their job. That's what that sounds like to me. But what do you think, chat?
Oh, I thought the family itself.
We'll discuss that with Mr. Reiner and see how to proceed.
Okay, I'm a bad.
Give it a minute. Give it a minute.
Not at all. It's not uncommon for private counsel to turn over cases to us, so no, but nothing about that would complicate the situation. I have to talk to him for only 30 seconds, so no, I have no idea. I only spoke to Mr. Reiner for about 30 seconds this morning. I have no comment about it. I have not. We've had no contact with the family. I don't think they were aware that this was going on until this morning.
We had no contact with his family, and we don't think they were aware of this. That's what I heard. I did hear it right. What? What?
So the family was blindsided by Alan Jackson stepping down? Interesting.
We had no contact with his family. We don't think they were aware. Why would you, first of all, say that? She's being honest. And I think that was...
Is she being honest, though? Is she being honest and disguising the fact that they pulled the plug on the money? I don't know. I mean, I don't put it past anyone to lie about these things. Like maybe Romy and Jake told them all, you know what? We don't want them to know that we pulled the plug on the money. Say something else. Say we were blindsided by it. I wouldn't put that past them.
At this point in time, Ms. Green will...
That's wild. That's wild.
I get the feeling this happened quickly.
Yeah, you could say that again.
Like something happened. Oh, this is nuts. This is nuts, nuts, nuts. Oh my gosh. Sorry, everybody. Just a few things behind the scenes we're just trying to get done. This is so bonkers. Just checking in. Because they're calling her a Temu lawyer. We don't know anything about
That's
her
so
yet.
mean.
She's talked to him for 30 seconds. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to get lawyers on to talk about this. 1 second.
Yeah, because this is absolutely wild. So most likely between Nick and his lawyer. I'm just reading through your chats, guys, and yeah. Well, here's my question: is you're saying a few of you were saying like it's definitely a money issue, but my question is it normal for it to go like dismissal of an attorney, public defender, and then new attorney enters? Because that's what we've heard Harvey Levin claim from TMZ, that they believe it is possible another lawyer will be entering the picture. So.
And I guess she thinks another lawyer besides the public defender. Is that what she thinks? And that's what Harvey Levin thinks from TMZ? I don't know. I'm trying to think, though. If I'm Alan Jackson, why would I step down? Is it because I really have an aversion to someone who's truly guilty? Probably not, if you're Alan Jackson as a defense lawyer. My guess would be something money related, or somehow the Slayer statute or something. That's my guess, but it's just a guess.
Chef Mario Cooks, who was that girl in the back that said no more comments? I don't know, guys. I don't know. Let me see here. Carrie Thomas, I just hope they don't make another OJ case out of this. I get the feeling this is going to be a very big case, especially if it ends up being televised. Because it sounds like
100%.
right now, it sounds like right now the only reason why we're getting the delay of the television or whatever, or the video of it, is because they're having to edit because things are under seal right now. So once that seal is up, which would have to be, I would assume, by the time we get to jury, that would be that.
They just pulled this?
Jimmy asked if I'd want to go down on the world stage. What I would try to do is, like, if I really thought he was guilty, I guess you just try to go for the best possible case at that point. What's the best possible circumstance? Maybe Alan Jackson was thinking, and maybe he misplayed his hand, honestly, going so hard in the paint for the not guilty by reason of insanity. Maybe that's biting off too much than they could chew. And maybe that's what he realized. Oh, wait a minute. I won't be able to get that for him. There's too much intent here. There's too much evidence he knew what he was doing. So maybe that was a bad thing to say. And like we said last time too, right? Maybe that whole thing was a trial balloon and he wanted to see how the court of public opinion would react a little bit. And he saw, and he was like, oh shit, like maybe it's not going to go well. And maybe that was a bad trial balloon. But I don't know. I think a lot of, you don't want to go down on the public stage, but as a defense lawyer, it is kind of part of your job. I mean, as a defense lawyer, a lot of people you are representing are guilty. It is what it is. A percentage of them are not, but many of them are guilty.
Or did it just end?
Oh, there you go.
Print
that.
Print that.
That print that was wild.
That
where is it again?
Should that be like the text on the thumbnail? Print
True
that.
facts of the circumstances surrounding this case, Nick's case.
The true facts. What true facts?
You know, a lot's been printed of late, over the last 3 weeks. A lot has been printed. Printed about Nick, printed about his family, printed about the circumstances. Speculation is in print. On December 15th, in the early morning hours, I was in New York at the time, and I got a call.
I love how he wants to be congratulated.
Me and my team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3
to rep the biggest cult
weeks
case in all of the world.
We
dropped everything to go get paid and take on a press release case. Oh my God. Bravo, Alan Jackson. Applaud everybody. Oh my God. Can you believe a lawyer dropped what he was doing to take on one of the most high profile cases to make a buck? Oh, bravo, sir. Where may I donate to your funds? I am just so floored by your generosity, sir. You dropped everything? Kim, can you believe he dropped everything?
I mean, was it really everything? Everything?
I'm sure it wasn't even that. Well, he did. He's like, literally, a murder happens and he's figured out a way to get inside the murder house.
I mean, I feel like if you've accepted the job, like that's your job. I would be mad if my lawyer didn't. You know? I'm paying you now to annoy you to get this done. It's his time. Let's go.
I'm floored by this.
literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his.
I think Tony Bruschi and Alan Jackson here are two sides of the same coin. Tony Bruschi's the prosecutor version of Alan Jackson. Very theatrical, very emotional, full of passion. That's what I see. Tony Bruschi will be next, by the way.
Interests. We've investigated this matter top to bottom, back to front.
But side to side. You put it
Not
in.
side to side. No, they didn't get side to side.
What we've
As soon as
learned,
you said that, the Ariana Grande song started playing in my head, which hasn't left yet. So thank you for that.
and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that.
So whenever I want to emphasize a point, I'm going to start saying, take this to the bank. Print that. That's how you know I'm dead ass serious.
Print that. We wish him the very, very best moving forward. And that's all I have today.
What a weird way to do it.
Print that.
Print
All narcissists are abusive. Print that.
Print
that. No, I mean, I'm printing that, but in like kind of a joke. Like, what?
No contact is not the silent treatment. Print that.
I still don't understand what the hell's happening. I did not see that coming today.
I don't think we're going to understand.
I
We're
just
not
don't
going to
think-
understand until we know more. That's the thing. We're going to be in the dark.
Well, and it's like, if he was so innocent and he felt so confident, do you think he would have let money stop this? I think he would have taken it hands down.
Yeah.
What a win to score this one.
This is going to be a stupid side like segue thing, but I get the feeling right now that we are currently playing what I'm going to call the game of Pruy. When I was younger and I was in high school, we played a game in drama class. It was a very stupid idea where all of the kids had to close their eyes, reach out and grab each other and attempt to find other people in the room to then join a larger group of people until everyone had grabbed each other. Now, what could possibly go wrong putting a whole bunch of teenagers in a
Here's the other thing. Alan Jackson might have just bitten off more than he could chew. That's a possibility too. He jumped the gun a little bit and was like, I can get him off not guilty by reason of insanity. And then he didn't think it all the way through. He just thought, oh, Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner murdered? I want on this case. And then he got involved and maybe said yes a little hastily. And then maybe he regrets the decision. That's possible too. I mean, you already got his name out there, right? Maybe he didn't want to go through with the rest of it. His name's already out there.
room with their hands out at chest level going like this, trying to grab onto other people. It was a brilliant idea by this teacher. But I feel like right now we are currently in the dark, trying to make sense of what we're seeing because we don't have all the information and we're getting broken information and we're attempting to make conclusions. This is Pruy. We are currently in legal Pruy. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
it's the
This is
stupidest
nuts.
thing.
This is wild. I'm still pretty shocked.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to get this video up quick because I want to make sure the press release gets its own upload.
Oh gosh.
Okay, you put that's good to go live.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, let's.
I
Try,
haven't
we're gonna try it.
Done
We've
a
done this
walkthrough
before.
about
Sometimes
it.
when it's really breaking, we get people. You should all let me know if you get the notification. That's actually a good test. While we're live, right now, folks, we just posted the new video that I just taped while I was there. We were taping. Please let me know, audience, if you get the notification. Subscribe if you hit the bell. Let me know if you get the notification for the new video. And if you do, please, excuse me.
Now, for those of you who watch this channel, is Popcorn Planet going out with this girl on the bottom? Are they a couple? Or is she just a friend of the channel?
Yeah, please don't do that.
Don't die.
Keep getting over my cough. please click it, watch it on your phone or something else in the background so we can get that initial algorithm love. Leave a comment, like. You can still stay here in the live. We're trying to get our notifications working, and I thought this actually is a good way to get you guys have been watching. It helps us break that New Year's curse where we have to restart. So if you get the notification, I'll love it. You guys are getting the notification. Click it if you can. Watch it. Let it play. Like it. Leave a comment. You can keep both things open, and then you'll help us get that out there because I want people to stay on top of this case, and I want them to get the news. And I want to make this video ultimately is going to be trimmed down to that Christopher Melcher section, which is worth its own video. So I want to make sure we're giving you as much content as we can here on Popcorn Planet and a good news story. So thank you everybody who's getting that alert, who's clicking it, who's watching it too. Yeah, I mean, look, I guess that's the news we're gonna get today. I don't expect to hear much more. I will say I'm still kind of shocked that she revealed the family didn't know. That kind of shocks me. They're like, so imagine getting that call. You're like a public defender. Oh, you'll be repping Nick Reiner. What? You're now his attorney. What? The one who killed Rob Reiner that everyone thinks is guilty? Oh, great.
Defender's office.
Yeah.
Garcia, Los Angeles County Public Defender. I'm here with Kimberly Green, the Deputy Public Defender assigned to the Reiner case. I want to say that on behalf of the entire Public Defender's Office, we are incredibly sorry and understand the pain and suffering that the Reiner family is going through at this time, as well as the entire Los Angeles community. The Public Defender's Office and the entire staff, our hearts at this time go out to the entire family. We hope that the community will also understand that this is a challenging time for the entire legal process. We ask for your patience, your understanding as we navigate this process through the legal system, and that we will be available as we can be to address your questions when appropriate. Thank you. We learned, I believe last night or yesterday, that we were being substituted in. I'm going to let Ms. Green answer that.
Briefly this morning, but we haven't had a chance to discuss anything. I spoke to Mr. Reiner briefly this morning. He was understanding that there was going to be a change in counsel. We haven't had any in-depth conversation.
It seems like whatever happened pretty quickly, though, too. I mean, it seems like yesterday or the day before, Alan Jackson was like, all right, I'm out. So what could have happened so quickly? Money being cut? Slayer statute enforced? Something else?
I have not. His former attorney says he's not guilty. We'll discuss that with Mr. Reiner and see how to proceed. Not at all. It's not uncommon for private counsel to turn over cases to us, so no, nothing about that would complicate the situation.
Not uncommon.
I have talked to him for only 30 seconds, so no, I have no idea. I only spoke to Mr. Reiner for about 30 seconds this morning. I have no comment about it. I have not. We've had no contact with the family. I don't think they were aware that this was going on until this morning.
So they just found out. The family itself just found out, which is telling. I find that telling. I think, yeah, someone look, it's not that someone's like, how did you not understand this? It's not that I don't understand. I'm kind of just shocked because it seemed like the family was all united front, like, footing the bill, figuring this out. They were standing by Nick. To cut Alan seems pretty big. It means they don't want to pay for it. Or it means Alan's like, this is a bad case. I want more money to cover this because you're going to lose. We don't know what conversations were had with Nick, the family, the lawyers, however. Again, this is all speculation. I'm putting it on there, so don't quote me. I'm just saying there's a million things that could have gone wrong, right? But for a lawyer to back out like that, this early on, such a high profile case that he's apparently so confident about, it's hard for me to believe this. Oh, we believe, no, that's braggadocious to me, saving face because, oh,
and that dude also, the PD,
it just feels like
PD questions also breaks down that person, Lauren. So I'm sure people would like that too. But that's dangerous. It's dangerous if she's going to be striking people's channels. Ooh.
He's trying to justify it, why he left. I asked about tactics. Could this be a delay tactic or some other reasons? And Chris didn't think there was really a benefit to this. He said this doesn't help or hurt Nick. I think optically though it does hurt Nick. I do think it optically hurts Nick.
Yes, I agree.
I think it does delay in a weird way. But do you really want to still be in jail? I mean, given the circumstance, if he knows he's going to be there for he's facing the death penalty and other things.
One thing I do just want to say quickly in the chat, everybody, I see what you guys are saying in the chat. There's some people who are alleging speculation, opinion. We are not confirming this at Popcorn Planet by any means. That someone is saying that Jackson was threatened by Nick. And what I want to ask is that if people are in this chat and you guys are going to be saying, I heard this, please tell us where and let us look into it.
It's right on by her. Anyone can throw accusations against the wall, but sources are important for this kind of thing. I try to emphasize when I'm making speculations or guessing, because I don't want people to be confused with me saying something that's been proven to be true or came from a source that's not me versus what is my opinion, because they're different things. They are different things. An example of that would be, it was my opinion that Nick might be undiagnosed on the spectrum. I've heard other people say the opinion, other people agreed with me, but there's been no official sources that say that.
Because this is where misinformation gets out and it goes crazy. And we don't want to be repeating things that are solely rumor based. That's not the way that we like to do things. And we're not trying to ignore what you guys are saying in the chat, but we also don't want to spread misinformation. So wherever you saw that, please let me know. Please let me know, because I want to make some sense of this, because that would be pretty wild if that was the case. But I have not seen anything to make me think that is the case. Let me see.
Yeah, and Jackson did defend Nick. He came out straight, like hard, literally print that he's not guilty of murder. So but at the same time, when I say that, when he says that, rather, to me, it's like he has to say that. Like, he cannot go and do a press conference calling out his client. Like,
he can't go up.
And that's very true too. You can't go out and say, you know what? I'm leaving because I think he's guilty. The end. Of course not. He's not allowed to say that. So he has to say whatever he has to say to get off the case. But, I mean, lawyers can also be professional liars too, in a way. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I think he just had to say what he had to say to get out. We can't trust what he said necessarily, but his actions speak loudly, right?
Just leaving as a defense attorney going, yeah, he totally did it, guys. He did it.
The attorney-client relationship, right, Kim? You can't suddenly go out and badmouth your client or imply anything negative. In fact, you got to do the opposite, I would think, no matter what, because he's your client. Maybe when they're dead, you could maybe make an allusion or something, but no, you can't go out there and say anything negative about the client. So of course, Alan's going to go there and say everything he said and probably overdid it on purpose to try to help Nick.
And that's true too. Overdoing it, maybe to overcompensate for something. I think he's guilty, so I'm really going to emphasize how not guilty he is. And what I said earlier always reminds me of what Maynard said in Tools, the pot, liar, lawyer, mirror, tell me what's the difference?
Knowing how difficult this was, but it's hard for me to not assume there weren't conversations
the entire staff, our hearts at this
about
time
how
go out.
difficult this case was going to be, because these insanity pleas, the schizophrenia diagnosis, all this stuff that they're sort of bringing out to try to use as a way to stop this. I don't think any of that's going to play to Kim. Do you?
No, I think this is a really, it's a difficult insanity plea to make. And I say that because there's a lot of people in this world that have, let's assume that the schizophrenia diagnosis rumor is true. Let's assume that for a moment. There's a lot of people that have schizophrenia that do not hurt other people. There's a lot of people that struggle with serious mental illness that do not hurt other people. This is about knowing right from wrong. And the problem I think we have when it comes to Nick is that we have such a history of behavior with him, of knowing that he has a problem, knowing that he's not healthy, knowing the difference between right and wrong, then of going like, oh, well, I had to prove to them that I was crazy, so I broke a window so that I could get substances, right? Like this is the type of person that we're dealing with. And if that is the case, it's going to be very difficult to prove insanity in that moment. And I've heard the argument that, oh, well, it's the new meds. Well, is it the new meds, or is it the new meds mixed with other things? Because at that point, if you know taking those things is wrong and you choose to do that, you're still responsible. You know what I mean? Like, unless someone...
And that's all correct. We've gone over this many times here, right? And this channel, Popcorn Planet, almost has 1 million subscribers, by the way. It's a lot of subscribers. But are you guys ready for some Tony Bruschi, or should I play this out more? Because this has another 40 minutes to go. What is that?
Is feeding it to you and you don't know that it's happening. That was your choice. And it just becomes a very, very difficult situation. And I'm wondering what has come back in evidence. I think his talk screen is going to be a very important piece of this case.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The TMZ had some new updates, which I'm loading up right here. Thank you, Kim, for the heads up. So just so we're clear, Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman says prosecutors are confident a jury will find Nick guilty of murdering his parents, no matter who he has as a defense lawyer. I don't mean to chuckle at the confidence, but if I was a betting man, I would bet on the district attorney as well. I agree. I don't know what on earth they're gonna be able to do or prove otherwise than what we're already seeing. It seems pretty clear cut. But again, everyone gets their day in court, and he will as well. Let's see here. Jackson said the circumstances. Alan did his press conference we reported on, saying there's one thing everyone can take to the bank. Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Jackson said the circumstances under which he had to withdraw from the case were beyond Nick's control. TMZ broke.
So they're just repeating the same things over and over now. So remember, 138:46 of this video is where we stopped. Let's see. Which one? Defense attorney destroys mountain of evidence claim. Everyone saw it coming. Nick Reiner's insanity defense explained. Which one shall we watch? This is the most recent one.
This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
The murder trial of Sarah Grace Patrick scheduled to begin now. Well, it's not happening. The case has now been pushed to August 3rd, a 7-month delay after prosecutors told Judge Dustin Hightower they would need time to review a defense neuropsychologist evaluation and potentially hire their own expert to rebut it. Sarah Grace Patrick is 17 years old. She's charged as an adult with 2 counts of murder and the shooting deaths of her mother, Christine Brock, and stepfather, James Brock. The couple was found shot in their bed in Carroll County, Georgia on February 20th of 2025. Their young daughter discovered the bodies. She was 5. Sarah, the older sister, is now being charged with the murders, called 911. 5 months later, she was arrested after the sheriff's office announced they had mountains of evidence, as they like to say, against her. But no murder weapon has been produced. No forensic evidence has been publicly disclosed. No firearm was found at the scene. And the defense's earlier motion for...
Oh, I fucked this up somehow. This one's not about Nick Reiner. Or is it? This is a confusing title because it doesn't look like it's all about Nick. It's about this other thing too. Very tricky. Very tricky indeed.
This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
what we're learning about in the Rob Reiner situation right now is that Nick Reiner, it was a medication transition period, if you will, transferring from one medication to another, which can be a risky time. It's always a scary thing, especially when you're dealing with any sort of antipsychotic drugs. We don't know exactly what he was taking, so we can't really say that for sure. But whatever it was, whatever medication you're getting on or off of, it can be a dangerous point in time. One of the big questions that's being asked is, it's $70,000 a month. Why is this being handled in the backyard guest house of a 78-year-old man, as if this is like the appropriate setting for this to be taking place? At the end of the day, will this trial do a whole lot in terms of correcting the system? No, it's going to.
So here's the other thing. So besides the dentist case, another case I might go over tomorrow night perhaps is the TikTok case. I'm not sure if you saw this, but Law and Crime Network went over it. But apparently there's some scheme that the TikTokers did to go fund me for a $5 million home or something like that. We'll go over that too, if there's interest in doing so.
To decide whether Nick Reiner ends up getting the death penalty, going to prison for the rest of his life, or in some sort of a psychiatric hold for the rest of his life. One of three options will take place, but it does bring awareness to the whole problem that exists, where Rob and Michelle should have never been in the situation to begin with, of managing this moment in Nick's life, one I'm sure of many, where he's switching medications and hoping to God he's going to be in a good place. The option that was presented to them, in their minds, the best solution at that night was to take him to a formal party where he had no business being, because they were afraid of what he could do to himself. So let's go put him around people. Maybe that'll be better. They knew, I'm sure, in their hearts that this could turn out to be a complete train wreck, which it did, but it was better than the alternative. And that's the reality that so many people are facing with people like this. So if anything, hopefully this brings this to a light and we can identify, hey, shouldn't be how we handle these sort of things. And so nobody should be making 70 grand a month to simply say, yeah, here, take these. And then there's nothing else going on. There's no other treatment involved. Right. And we don't know the full details. Maybe there was in treatment and Nick said, no, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to take this treatment, but I'm going to whatever. Who knows? Because that option could have existed as well. But it's a racket for so many. If anyone's charging that much and you're getting that little of care that this was allowed to take place, that in itself seems very criminal. And there are a lot of rehabs out there that, yes, are very much for profit, do absolute shit to help the people around them, yet rake in the bucks because they're called a rehab and because they're the most approachable to the addict. And maybe the addict will think this one's going to be good. It's not as horrible as the others.
The drug addiction, it muddies up the mental illness issue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, they usually go hand in hand so often.
I know they do, but the fact still remains. It muddies up the issue. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it was the addiction that caused him to do what he did to his father. Right. I think it was the mental illness. And, you know.
Thank you very much for this, Jude. How do you say that? Judy's. Happy New Year to you as well. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Now, again, he's saying he blames mental illness, this guy. I think it's also possible he could just be like a psychopath plus some addiction in there and boom. But ultimately, it's the character part or / personality part. That is really what it could be. I mean, people don't want to think that. Of course, the defense doesn't want to think that. But to me, that's certainly a possibility. But a lot of people are hesitant to say that. For example, if Ted Bundy's things happened today, would they try to say something else? Would they say, oh, he's schizophrenic, or he's this, or he's that? Why are they saying it? Just to try to get him off the hook. But again, with autistic people and schizophrenic people, most of them are not violent, by the way. Now, personality disorders, especially narcissism and antisocial, abusive, that doesn't always mean physically violent, but they certainly can be.
We have so many amazing comments. I'd like to spend a few minutes before we dip.
Yeah, let's go through some of those.
Like, we've got an amazing group of people in here just saying amazing shit. And, you know, for me, man, it is going to boil down to being a battle of the experts, and which is a fucking shame, because ultimately what we need to be caring about is getting to a solution for this thing, which you and I keep talking about. I don't know what it is. Like, I think you're right. I think we have to reopen the facilities, maybe not allow fucking people to do lobotomies on people.
Yes.
Like, not allow them to zap their fucking brain. It's like, I always think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as like a perfect example of.
We always talked about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as well. But Kat in the chat said that she had spoken to Rob Reiner and said he was up to date on politics, etc. I always got the impression that Rob seemed like a genuine guy. That's kind of the vibe I got, but I'm curious what she thinks.
Like what those institutions were like, and that other part of it, I think we can handle on the front end, where that danger that you were talking about, where people were abusing the system, and you basically had 5 family members fucking like all you know, saying
the black sheep of the family goes away because they have a difficult political view or something.
Exactly. You know, so like what. Like the legal system would have to handle that front end of it. It would have to be a more thorough hearings.
He's a black sheep of the family. This is another definition of black sheep, though, right? You could make an argument that Nick might have been the black sheep of his family, but that's not really the version of black sheep I choose to identify with.
Scenario wherein you're going in front of a judge, but still that's scary. Like it impedes probate shit where it's like it's hard.
It all comes down to the rights. It comes down to the civil rights and the civil liberties. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in today, because we went from one area where you could literally have the family going, they voted for that person over there. I don't like them. They're crazy. Let's lock them up, or whatever. The husband wants to go have an affair with somebody, and there goes the wife. She's crazy. Now she's institutionalized. Right. We went from that extreme to now over here where these people are complete dangers to themselves or others, and we have groups saying, well, they have rights, they have a choice, they if they want to do this, they not do that, they don't have to do that. They literally have to be like basically sitting there with the gun to their head when the police show up if they're going to be committed. If someone calls and says, hey, my loved one here has a gun to their head, they're threatening to kill themselves, and if the police show up 10 minutes later and they're in California, the gun's down going, I was just kidding, there's nothing the police can do about it.
Right.
Because they have rights. Right. This is where we need to, and I'm all about having rights, but we need to tamper back here and have the adults in the room be able to say, yeah, this person's not capable of exercising those rights right now because they're going to kill themselves or others, or hurt themselves or others. And a collective enough of people who are not invested into that individual as a family member or a friend, a third party, needs to be able to say, yeah, you're right, this person's not safe, and we're going to keep them over here. More than just a 5150 and a 72-hour hold. More like, this person needs long-term care, and there's nothing else that's going to help them. Right. So thankfully, we care enough people enough in our country that we have these facilities where we can take them to and help them, but we don't. Right. Instead, we have underpasses and brigades of people going, let's build more houses for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, which we don't do either.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they don't. They're living in tents.
Exactly. We over there, we just don't do shit about it. We just complain that, well, we don't have the money for the housing. And the housing's not even the fucking problem.
Look at the park. There's all those tents in the park. Yeah. Like, fucking get rid of that. It's like we're just not dealing with the issues.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you go out to the outskirts of town, there's a giant mental health facility that's been abandoned since 1984. Yeah. Like, that's where they used to live. Yeah, it's there's so many problems with this, and 99.9% of the cases that we cover all are having to do with a.
The thing about Rob Reiner is, if he didn't talk about how much he didn't like Trump, a lot of the people that don't like him wouldn't have nearly as much of a problem with him if he wouldn't have talked about those things. But since he did, then all of a sudden it really made a lot of people not like him, where before that, I don't really remember people saying much about him. But then when he started talking, it changed a lot of people's minds.
Mental health crisis. Dude. And yet everybody goes around to everything else. Well, let's put a Band-Aid on this. Let's put a Band-Aid on that. Let's have a policy for this, but never actually getting to the root of the problem.
Fucking state. Like, if anybody, I got a lot of people that are on my channel that are in chat here, and they know I talk about it with you all the time, Tony.
Yep.
I would be trying to talk to the state's attorney about the fact that my client was mentally ill. And yes, they weren't frothing at the mouth, scratching at walls, but they were fucking mentally ill. I was spending quality time with this person. And I'd be like, hey, man, I'm just telling you, there's something else going on here. And it like Creative Cassify or Chaosify at 11:58 said a crime happened and the wheels of justice must move forward. Though I want to articulate a double homicide happened. Whether or not a crime happened is determined at trial. Like people always need to remember. So like there's the question, because whether or not a homicide is justified, like if you're dealing with a self-defense case, so yes, there was a homicide that occurred. That's not necessarily a crime. That means that somebody was killed. To determine whether or not it was a crime, that's why you go through the process of going through a trial if that person's not going to plead. That's why when you see like a great example is the self-defense cases, was that a justified homicide? If a jury comes back and said, well, that person did kill that person, however, it was justified, that is not a crime. This is the same thing. If they come forward with the insanity defense and the jury came back after all the testimony comes out and they say, okay, well, as brutal as this was, this double homicide, and just like,
So my thoughts on Rob Reiner, I should probably go over it at a point. I mean, he probably had a bit of an ego, but I didn't really see him come off as like extremely like arrogant or extreme grandiosity a lot of times. Behind closed doors, we don't know what it was. There could have been some of that. But I think people like Quentin Tarantino, Obama, Trump, they're much more self-aggrandizing than I think Rob Reiner was. But who else would be out there in that list? There's tons, especially in Hollywood, that they can't stop tooting their own horn. And there's a lot of people like that.
The absolute legends and, all the things that come along with it. But they listen to all the evidence and they come back and they say, we don't think that Nick could form the requisite intent to commit the crime in terms of in his brain. And they come back and they say that he's not guilty by reason of insanity. Then a crime has not taken place because they filed. So like, I just want to clarify that. It's like people have a tendency to think that, they're alleging that a crime took place. When remember, everybody's innocent until proven guilty in this country. And
they're supposed to be.
And they're supposed to be. But in this particular case, it's just like such like a web. It's got so many different ways that it can go, and there's so many different things that have to be addressed with this case. But at the end of the day, T, it's exactly what you were saying, man. I hope that this case helps shine.
Build more houses for them.
Yeah, well, which we don't do either.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we don't. They're living in tents.
Exactly. We over there, we just don't do shit about it. We just complain that, we don't have the money for the housing. And the housing's not even the fucking problem.
Look at the park. There's all those tents in the park. Yeah. Like, fucking get rid of it. It's like we're just not dealing with the issues.
Yeah, and it's like, and if you go out to the outskirts of town, there's a giant mental health facility that's been abandoned since 1984. Yeah. Like, that's where they used to live. Yeah.
I was actually reading about that too, to have the mental health facilities. A lot of people blamed it on Reagan, but there was actually more things before that happened. It wasn't just Reagan. There was a process from 1955 until the 80s when they were officially closed. What happened was Jimmy Carter had some policies in there, but then what happened, Reagan didn't fund the policies that Jimmy Carter had in place, and they left it up to the states, but it needed federal funding. And since there was no federal funding, a lot of those places left. Now, the initial problem was that's where those mental institutions were put in place for, so that there was a place for those people to go. But those conditions got bad. So initially, when they started to try to do something about that, it was because the issues in those and conditions in those sanitariums and mental health facilities were really poor. And so they tried to do something about it. But as usual, especially when the government tries to do something about it, it goes off the rails, and it didn't go well. And so now there really is no mental health institutions for the very most part that are permanent. There's temporary places, but as far as I know, there's not too many permanent places outside of a retirement home. There's a couple developmentally disabled places, but that's not quite the same. Like there's group homes, but that's not the same.
There's so many problems with this, and 99.9% of the cases that we cover all are having to do with a mental health crisis.
Dude.
And yet everybody goes around to everything else. Well, let's put a Band-Aid on this. Let's put a Band-Aid on that. Let's have a policy for this, but never actually getting to the root of the
fucking
problem.
State. Like if anybody, I got a lot of people that are on my channel that are in chat here, and they know. I talk about it with you all the time, Tony.
Yep.
I would be trying to talk to the state's attorney about the fact that my client was mentally ill. And yes, they weren't frothing at the mouth, scratching at walls, but they were fucking mentally ill. I was spending quality time with this person. And I'd be like, hey, man, I'm just telling you, there's something else going on here. And it like, Creative Cassify or Chaosify at 11:58 said a crime happened and the wheels of justice must move forward. Though I want to articulate a double homicide happened. Whether or not a crime happened is determined at trial. Like people always.
What a boneheaded take that was, especially considering what's going on in the case. It was a crime. I highly doubt it was not guilty by reason of insanity, but that was a wild take. And maybe this is what Beautiful was referring to, but I was not paying attention.
So like there's the question, because whether or not a homicide is justified, like if you're dealing with a self-defense case, so yes, there was a homicide that occurred. That's not necessarily a crime. That means that somebody was killed. To determine whether or not it was a crime, that's why you go through the process of going through a trial if that person's not going to plead. That's why when you see like a great example is the self-defense cases, was that a justified homicide? If a jury comes back and said, well, that person did kill that person, however, it was justified, that is not a crime. This is the same thing. If they come forward with the insanity defense and the jury came back after all the testimony comes out and they say, okay, well, as brutal as this was, this double homicide, and just like, to absolute legends and, all the things that come along with it. But they listen to all the evidence and they come back and they say, we don't think that Nick could form the requisite intent to commit the crime in terms of in his brain. And they come back and they say that he's not guilty by reason of insanity. Then a crime has not taken place because they find. So like, I just want to clarify that. It's like people have a tendency to think,
by some technicality, he might be correct with it, but there's still a crime. You can't kill two people and have there not be a crime. I'm sorry. He might be getting into the semantics, but
that, they're alleging that a crime took place. When remember, everybody's innocent until proven guilty in this country, and
they're supposed to be.
And they're supposed to be. But in this particular case, it's just like such.
The only exception would be a self-defense case. If there's a self-defense case, okay. But this was not that. From everything we know, this was not that.
Like a web. It's got so many different ways that it can go, and there's so many different things that have to be addressed with this case. But at the end of the day, T, it's exactly what you were saying, man. I hope that this case helps shine a light on this like fucking epidemic that's happening, not just in this country, but all over the world. Like mental illness is a thing that has been swept under the rug for far too long. It shouldn't be, an NFL player that admits that he has, that he's dealing with some kind of mental illness in order to get it out there. And people like say, oh, wow, it really does exist. Oh, somebody like what? Like, are we living in a fucking crazy world?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have to ask?
Yeah, it's frustrating, man. So I hope out of the horrors of this case that something good comes out of it. And if it's just the conversations start taking place, the acknowledgement that mental illness is real. Yes. If you break your fucking arm, you go get a cast.
Yep, you do.
It's like, it's the same thing. If there's something broken in your mind, the tricky part is you can use an x-ray for a broken arm and know exactly what the issue is. The tricky part for all those wonderful people out there that are trying to diagnose people with mental illness is they don't have that same tool. There's an element of guessing to it and they're collaborating with their other colleagues, and they're saying, okay, well, what do you think of this? And they're looking at all the things that are presenting, and they're saying, okay, well, we think this is what it is, but there is that, and it's the same thing with the medications.
Yeah.
They're trying to find the right fit, and medications don't interact with everybody's.
I'm not a fan of this guy. I don't think this guy. I'm not sure about this guy, Bob Mata, Defense Diaries podcast.
Mind the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There is no uniformity to it's an incredibly frustrating thing, and it's just something that has to be acknowledged on a much grander level. And I hope that this case, when it's going to get all the publicity that it does, really forces people to take a look in the mirror and really start kind of like acknowledging that this is a really big problem in our country.
And hopefully it does take us.
So what I've mentioned many times is there needs to be a place to hold people for more than 72 hours for mental health treatment if that's what's going on. That part's true. I do agree with that. That would prevent cases like that North Carolina train murder. It would prevent that. Might even prevent cases like this. But just the fact that you can do it against their will, that's what's needed. It has to be against their will, unfortunately.
Down that path. Give us your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube or on our Substack. You can be sure to check that out. The link is in the description. hiddenkillers.substack.com. That's the quickest way for me to see it. I try to read all the YouTube comments, but we get thousands of them every day, so it's a little difficult. But Substack, if you want to join us over there, I will see your comment. That's the quickest way to have a direct conversation with us here at the show. So please do check that out and press subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching us, whether it be YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
So let's go to old trusty Brian Etton.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe.
Cool story. The other day, I was watching the news station that the old dude from CNN's on, the brother, Chris Cuomo, the channel that Chris Cuomo is on. And I was looking at that channel, and all of a sudden I saw a guy that looked like Brian Etton. I'm like, who the heck is that? Is that Brian Etton, a news anchor? And it was Brian Etton. And I was like, that's Brian.
Move right now. I'm actually on my way to Los Angeles. Nick Reiner is going to have his...
I think the name of that channel is News Nation or One Nation or something.
His arraignment coming up this week in LA. Nick Reiner, of course, is accused of killing his famous parents, Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner. Just a terrible, terrible story. But there's some new developments that I'm going to dig into in this episode. First of all, LAPD has sealed the death reports, which is very unusual from what I'm told. So they are not making the death reports, the specifics of the autopsy reports public, which I'm told they usually do. And I'm digging into why that might be the case. Also, there's been so much talk about an insanity defense, but there hasn't been a lot of talk about competency. And it is possible that Nick Reiner's defense could try to prove that he is not competent to stand trial, which would have a huge impact on things.
Now, keep in mind, this video is before the Alan Jackson stepping down. Brian Etton only did a short on that today, but this video is from yesterday before this happened. Today was supposed to be Nick Reiner's arraignment, but I got delayed. I think I got delayed till February 19th or February 24th. I can't remember which one.
And that competency argument could actually start this week. So I'm going to dig into that and a lot more about everything we can expect with this court hearing coming up and the latest on the Nick Reiner investigation in this episode of Brian Etton Investigates. I'm joined now by Ambrosio Rodriguez, a defense attorney in Los Angeles, former prosecutor. It's good to see you again, Ambrosio. Happy New Year. I'm so glad we have you to talk to because you're in California. You understand the law. I wanted to first ask you about the LAPD putting what they're calling a security hold on the death records involving Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner. And they put out a statement saying that they have that the causes of death have already been made public, but the LAPD wanted to ensure detectives from robbery homicide learned of important information surrounding their deaths before the media and the public. And they say the order was not sought to undermine transparency, but they have sealed the records. So no one can get them, I guess, except for the detectives. Does that surprise you?
Yes, and I've never.
So here's the other thing. This is true, beautiful, but there's many versions of drowning out the noise. There's a one hot clip saying he started taking street drugs to drown out the noise. So yeah, he may very well be schizophrenic. He will still lose his case. There's many versions of drowning out the noise though, right? Schizophrenia is one of them, but not the only one.
Heard of that term. It's a security hold, I think you called it, or
yeah, they're calling it a security hold on the death records.
I've never heard of that. I mean, I've had lots and lots of murder cases and some high profile cases. Usually things can be, the defense lawyer can receive discovery under what's called a protective order, meaning that evidence is turned over to me and then I cannot release it to anyone outside of my defense team, right? Detective, investigator, paralegals, or so forth. But this particular term I haven't heard. The prosecution can file things under seal and file proper requests in order to prevent it from leaking out. But the prosecution can't stop it from turning over to the defense. They have to turn over the autopsy to reports to the defense. That's non-negotiable.
Do you think the defense has been able to get the reports yet?
I don't know.
And that's an important point there too. Autopsy reports sealed from the public, but the defense must get them. That's important to know. And maybe there's something in those autopsy reports Alan Jackson didn't like either. I don't know. Although I don't know what he would be expecting with 2 throats being slit.
It's been, 3 weeks since the alleged murders. It's usually enough time to get that over, but maybe not. I mean, sometimes it can take up a couple of months. On a normal case, it can take a couple of months to get what's called the murder book, which is the entire investigative reports from the police involving the autopsy reports and things. But that's a normal case. This is not a normal case. And then you have the slowdown of the holidays, because it doesn't matter how important or how big a case is. You can't make people work during the holidays, right? Especially public servants. And so he might have the information, he might not, but it would not be abnormal for 3 weeks after the alleged murder for the autopsy report to not have been turned over.
Why would they want to keep the autopsy report secret, though, from the public? I mean, in my opinion, the public has a right to that kind of information. The medical examiner has a role of making that information public, how people die. They've already got someone in custody. They've said that they were stabbed. Why wouldn't they give out all the information? Like, is there some investigative reason, do you think?
I've always thought that with this case, the defense is going to turn, and the prosecution as well, will turn on the brutality of the attack. Meaning, what do the bodies look like after the attack? Was it multiple stab wounds? Where were they? Was it do the bodies betray violence or just one quick attack, right? And I think this is in many ways, along with his mental health issues and drug addiction issues, those are the 3 legs to the stool of this case, right? So the only thing I can think of is that, given at the level of the people that we're talking about, that their requests were made in order to try to keep this at bay for as long as possible, for the privacy of the family during a very difficult time during the holidays, and that they just did not want this out there right away. And it's just a way to try to delay this information from coming forward. But eventually it will be. This will eventually come out. At the preliminary hearing, this information is going to come out. And a preliminary hearing is open to the public, just like every other court appearance that Mr. Reiner is going to have.
you talked about the brutality, and we don't know. I mean, we know that there were multiple, stab wounds, but we don't know all the details of how many or how. I mean, it was brutal, but how brutal it was. Why would that be important on both sides? Like, why would how could the defense use that information, and how could the prosecution use that information?
Right. So there is, in order to get to, so homicide is not a crime, right? Homicide is a method of killing someone, a method of dying, right? That means dying at the hands of another. Whether it's a crime and what kind of crime it is, it's up to the jury. And there are different degrees, right? He's charged with murder in the first degree, which means it's willful, deliberate, and premeditated. Defense attorney, look, 95% of all murder cases for the defense attorney, we're not fighting identity. That's just on TV and the movies. What we're fighting is degree, right? We want to lower the degree in order to lower the punishment, the consequences. To get to manslaughter, which in terms of his exposure, murder in the first degree is 25 to life. Manslaughter is 4, 6, or 11 per victim in state prison. It's a determinate sentence. You have to have something called heat of passion. Now, traditionally, heat of passion is, what taught in law school is husband comes home, finds his wife in bed with another man, and kills them, right? He doesn't have time to think. He reacts. There's no premeditation. There's no deliberation. There's no time to think. It's just that heat of passion. But heat of passion can also come from a confrontation where a person loses it and just reacts as opposed to has time to think.
And that might be an angle the new defense tries to deploy there. Oh, he was in such an angry argument with Rob at the party. He was embarrassed by Bill Hader. And in a crime of passion, he did that. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that might be an angle they try to play.
The stabbing someone is a very hard thing to do. And to kill someone with a knife is a hard thing to do, right? And because it gets bloody, the knife gets slippery. The person will always, the attacker will always have cuts in his hands from trying to use the knife that's getting away from him. And so I think that the prosecution, if my theory is correct, I think the prosecution will portray it as him having plenty of opportunities to stop himself, and that his rage betrayed and was past anger, right? That was being manifested. It's a type of revenge. And I think the defense will argue that this was someone who lost all control due to his mental health issues and his drug addiction, and that the brutality of the crime betrays his sickness, his mental health sickness, and his addiction. And I think that will be kind of a big part of this case. And I say that just because it takes a lot to kill two people with a knife. This is not, special, this isn't a trained killer, right? This isn't a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret that's trained to kill someone with a knife, right? This is a kid from Brentwood.
So if it ends up being even more brutal in the reports and just, stabbing after stabbing and just
and this is the thing, any kind of knife attack that ends in death is going to be pretty brutal. Beautiful said in the chat that if he's very lucky, it might go down to murder too, but I don't think so. That'd be a best case for him, I would say. I don't think he's going to be able to get not guilty by reason of insanity. He's M1. M1 is really what it should be, in my opinion.
Terrible. I'm just trying to, based on what you just said, is that good for the defense?
I think with the defense is you have what you have. Sometimes you just have to the defense in a situation like this. I think the defense has to take what the worst part of the case against them is to flip it and make it a center of the defense. You cannot run away from that. You have to take it head on and own it. And then through the trial, you have to desensitize the jury to the kind of ugly, brutal part of it, right? You prepare them during voir dire, during jury selection, and you want to have those pictures in front of them as often as possible in order to desensitize them.
There's been a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that in cases both when I was a prosecutor, when I was a DA, and I had bloody, brutal murder cases, I would rarely use those pictures because I don't want to desensitize the jury. And and as a defense attorney, I want that over and over and over so they get desensitized. So it doesn't become the sole focus of their deliberations and they can move past it.
Interesting. So you would rarely use the gruesome photos as a prosecutor, because I would have thought the opposite. Like you would want people to see them over and over again and just be like disgusted.
Right, but disgust gets wears off.
Interesting.
It just does. You know what I mean? We get disgusted by a lot of things in society, and we eventually get used to it and move on.
I guess the more they see the photos, they will become desensitized, you say.
Yeah, that's basic human psychology. We are built to survive. And when you show us something that shocks us, that shock will wear off if we see it over and over and over again. It becomes normalized.
And that's true. That does happen. But could you imagine all the people that have to clean up crime scenes, the things that they have to deal with? It's the same with people that are EMTs. They see people that have died in car accidents all the time. It's a pretty traumatic job. And I'd be all for the EMTs making more money than they do. But I think they're criminally underpaid, actually, especially considering the severity of what they do and the fact that they can be life-saving as well. That's an important job. It's an important job. But cleaning crime scenes, that's got to be rough.
Interesting.
Unfortunately.
There's been a lot of talk about the insanity defense. But something that's come up recently, which I think is really interesting, is competency. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, do you think his attorney is going to try to challenge his competency so that there's not even a trial? I mean, how would that work?
Sure. So there are, and this is really important, they are two completely separate legal proceedings, right? If you, as an attorney, I can tell the court that I'm declaring a doubt as to my client. Once I say those words, I'm declaring a doubt to my client, it means that the criminal proceedings are paused and that there's what's called a 1368 evaluation. That's a section of the penal code. And with let's just call it a normal case as opposed to a high profile case like this, what happens is the case then gets sent to mental health court in Hollywood, where they will appoint one evaluator, a psychiatrist, to determine whether or not the person is competent or not to stand trial. You can have two people appointed. Sometimes the defense and the prosecution will agree on one person. Sometimes each will choose one. If there is a disagreement, let's say one says that he is and the other one says that he's not, then the court can appoint a third evaluator to determine whether or not the person is competent. And so there's either an agreement that the person is competent or not, or that you can actually have a bench trial to determine whether or not a person is competent or not. If it's determined that the defendant is not competent to stand trial, the person is then sent to a place like Patton Mental State Hospital, where he or she will receive treatment, meaning medication, until that person is brought back to competency, right? Once that person is established that they're competent to stand trial, they are brought back to court and the criminal proceedings begin again, right? Competent means that you cannot participate in your defense and you cannot aid in your defense. That means you don't understand what's going on, that you cannot.
I don't even think he can do this, especially considering what happened today. He said he agreed to the fact that Alan Jackson was stepping down as his lawyer. So he's only said 2 sentences, as far as we know, Nick Reiner, but those 2 sentences don't speak to him being incompetent or not competent enough to be standing trial.
Communicate with your lawyer in a rational way or an intelligent way in order to aid in your defense, that you do not understand what is going on and who the judge is, what the prosecutor does, what the defense attorney does, or what's going on around you. That's a very, very high bar, right? And what usually happens if they even get to Patton is that they'll be medicated until the kind of cocktail balances them out and they're able to function, right? You're talking about schizophrenics, And that's usually what you're, dealing with people who are paranoid schizophrenics or bipolar to a degree that they need to be medicated heavily. That's one process. Eventually, what will happen is, with that process, let me just finish, is that they either are competent to stay in trial and they stay in trial, or they stay in patent for the rest of their lives, right? That they're so gone that there's just no coming back. Then that's very different than NGI. An NGI plea, and not guilty by insanity, means that you can be completely competent and normal person, but at the time the crime was committed, you meet the qualifications of insanity, meaning that you did not know the difference between right and wrong. And that's a completely different process. That means that you plead not guilty by reason of insanity to the court. Usually that's done after preliminary hearing, not before. And then once that plea is entered, then both sides appoint psychiatrists, or the prosecution can retain a psychiatrist, and to begin the process of writing evaluations that have to be shared back and forth. And obviously, the advantage that Mr. Reiner has, given, we'll just make the assumption that he has the means to do this, is that he can hire multiple experts, which is not cheap.
And now this is no longer true. He does not have the means anymore, I don't think. That's not a fact, because we don't know the reason why Alan Jackson's stepping down. But the fact that he has a public defender now and not someone else, that speaks to me, that says to me that he doesn't have the funds to do all these specialists anymore. But what do you think, chat?
At all. And you're talking at least $50,000 per expert, if not more. And you kind of go from there.
So do you think this is something his defense attorney will go after? I mean, what would the motive be, to just sort of delay things, or how do you think it'll play out?
Well, I don't know. Because look, with an NGI plea, what happens if it goes forward to trial, then you have two trials. One to determine whether or not the person is guilty or not guilty. If he's found guilty by the jury, then there's a second phase of whether or not he's not guilty by reason of insanity. And then that, if he's found not guilty by reason of insanity, then obviously there isn't prison involved. There are other things that Mr. Jackson can do without declaring him either incompetent or NGI, which is to begin with what's called a 730 evaluation, right? And to do a mental health evaluation and have him psyched, seen by psychiatrists and stuff like that. And by the way, he can do all these things without actually making any declarations to the court, right? He can have him. I think it's safe to assume that since he was arrested, I'm sure he's been seen by at least one psychiatrist from the defense team, if not more than one, and that evaluations have started and will be coming forward. But I don't see that being released anytime soon by the defense.
There's already been reports out that he, doesn't remember what happened and is not, in a good mental state right now in custody. I mean, could they try to declare him incompetent, and could that go on for a long time? I mean, could he be incompetent for like 5 or 10 years? And could that be a tactic by the defense to kind of keep him out of, traditional jail and just sort of see what happens?
Patton isn't that great of a place. I mean, Patton, I've been there. I've taken a tour. I mean,
I don't think they're going to be able to swing this. I don't think they're going to be able to push him as incompetent for 5 to 10 years. Most likely not. And someone in the chat said that they don't think that Alan Jackson stepped down because of money. He seemed angry about what was going on, that he had to step down. But I would also say it's possible he was acting. He was playing up their role of being angry that he was not being able to be his lawyer, and he emphasized that Nick is not guilty. But that might have all been a ruse, honestly. We don't know.
It's a place where, unless you're, mentally, legally insane, is not a place that you really want to be in. In many ways, it's worse than prison because of the population that you're with. It's very difficult being with people that have to be sometimes forcibly medicated, and that they're in a state that requires constant care and attention. So I don't see, and it's hard to get past. I mean, you really can't manipulate 1368, the 1368 process, because it's such a high standard. And it is, like most things involving the law and psychiatry or psychology, it has developed in a way over the last 100 years to catch people that are malingering.
That are faking it.
Right. That's built into all the testing.
You mentioned like the experts and how expensive they are, and how he obviously, it seems like, has a lot of resources, at least based on the defense attorney he was able to hire. Could they just find the experts who are going to say what they want them to say? If they want to prove that he's incompetent, can you just find people who you're going to pay enough to, come up with that conclusion?
I know that a lot of people think.
It's a good question by Brian. I know my answer would be like several doctors. You go send the same person to 5 doctors, you might get several different diagnoses, and they might try to shop around for diagnoses. I would not put that past them at all.
That's how it works. And for sure, there's lots of hacks out there on both sides, meaning that there are plenty of prosecutors that use hacks, and there's plenty of defense attorneys that use hacks that will say whatever they want. I don't know Mr. Jackson to operate that way, and I wouldn't ever accuse a fellow attorney of doing something that I think is unethical and unprofessional. But that does happen, and it exists, but it's not as common as the world thinks it is in terms of the legal field. There's obviously there's definitely experts that are more pro-defense or more pro-prosecution, but I think that has a lot to do with their worldview more than who's paying them. Does that, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So there's plenty of psychiatrists and psychologists that have a less touchy-feely kind of, it's everybody's fault but yours attitude about what makes us tick. And there's lots of psychologists that believe that, we are very much just lack free will, if you will, right?
Now, this is an interesting theory. I also heard Alan might have been removed for leaking to TMZ. Now, that's not confirmed or anything, and it's just a theory. But is it indeed against the rules to leak to TMZ? Is that against the law somehow? And would that also explain maybe why he was angry about having to step down? Because he got caught. He got caught doing something that he wasn't supposed to be doing, leaking stuff to TMZ. Now, again, we don't know if either one of these things is true. We don't know for sure he was the person leaking to TMZ, and we don't know if this is what forced him to be stepping down. But it might be a plausible explanation, if you ask me. That might be true.
And so those experts tend to kind of go to their side of the aisle.
Assuming with all the issues that we know Nick Reiner has had, that he's had probably psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists, and he's been in and out of rehab, can they call all of those people as witnesses? Or is there like a HIPAA? I mean, because if the defense is going to try to bring in new experts, but if you're the prosecution, wouldn't you want to actually hear from the people who have been treating him for the last,
and that's that, Brian. That's a great point, because the defense experts, if they're qualified, let's assume that they're qualified experts, meaning that they are at the top of their game, right? An attorney like Alan Jackson would have experts that are, at his level. They would want to write any report that they're going to write and eventually maybe even testify to is going to require them having access and knowledge of.
Thank you very much for this, Farley. Love your channel. I believe Nick is loving this. Now that he is famous, everyone will be talking about him forever. And you know what? There can be a part of him that is loving this. I totally agree with that. That doesn't mean he's not hating being in jail, but the fact that he's made himself infamous in a way and created one of the most famous crimes of 2025. I mean, it's neck and neck between Charlie Kirk and that, right? But that's a good point. Thank you again, Farley.
Everything that has happened in the last 20 years of Mr. Reiner's life in terms of addiction and psychological reports. Because if I'm the prosecutor, the first thing I'm going to ask is, wait, you didn't look at this? You didn't look at this? You didn't look at this? You know, how can you say that your opinion is valid if you haven't spent any time going over his psychological reports from the last 20 years and speaking to his previous mental health caregivers?
Interesting. And just lastly, the arraignment that is scheduled for this week, what can we expect? I mean, we didn't see him. He wasn't on camera at the last one. What do you think will happen at this arraignment?
I mean, look, yeah, I think like anytime you call me to talk about this case, I'm going to keep saying in a normal case.
Right.
Right. And right. But in a normal case, an arraignment is the defendant comes out. His name is, you know, it's basically the case is called, you know, People California versus John Smith, case number. You know, John Smith is present in court in custody with his attorney present. Attorney says, you know, enters a plea of not guilty, denies all allegations, waives advisement of rights, and reading the complaint. And a new date has been chosen by both sides before the case is even called. And that's it. Should take 2 minutes at most. But with this one, I expect him to enter pleas. I mean, it's been 3 weeks. I think the court will want to enter a plea and then kind of begin the process and get going.
When you say enter a plea, could it be an insanity plea at this point?
A not guilty plea. I mean, it's either going to, I expect it to be a not guilty plea. I think it's too soon to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. There's plenty of time to do that. And like I said, that's usually done after the preliminary hearing, not before.
If they're going to try to say he's incompetent, is that something that would come up at an arraignment, or is it too early for that?
Right away.
It would.
Yeah. He could declare a doubt right away.
Do you think we'll see that?
I mean, I don't know. I doubt it. I would be surprised if that was the case.
Would you expect at the arraignment that they'll say as little as possible, given the whole situation?
Right. That's an issue of style, right? If I don't know if Mr. Jackson is going to want to give a statement to the press afterwards. I think I would. I would want to get my side of the story out there. In terms of what's said on the record in front of court, I would keep it down to the bare minimum, because it's just arraignments are a bare minimum type of hearing. There's not much is supposed to happen other than just to enter a plea of not guilty, which is almost automatic, and then just move on with the case and pick dates and get going. But I think that giving some kind of statement would be in his client's best interest, just to get a counter narrative going, right? Because the narrative right now is there's a great director who we all have memories of him just through his movies. I remember the first time I saw When Harry Met Sally, and we all have lines memorized from his movies. He is part of our.
And this isn't going to happen, right? There is going to be no statement. The statement was, "Hi, my name's Alan Jackson. I'm stepping down from the case." But Nick is certainly not guilty. Take it to the bank. Print that. That's what we got. And does that make Nick look good? I don't think so. I don't think any of that looks good for Nick. So if anything, things look a little worse for Nick. And the arraignment is a February 23rd, George. That's what the arraignment has been pushed back to. I guess the other question is, do you think another lawyer will take the place of the public defender?
Imagination and our creative mind. That is quite an accomplishment, right? To say the least. So I don't, when you're accused of killing not just your mother and father, but accused of killing a man who was universally loved in this country, I think there has to be something out there to begin a counter story to it, because because one of the concerns or one of the issues is the counter of like, this was a tragedy that he regrets for the rest of his life. He is a victim of his addiction and his mental health problems. There is a counter to that, which is it's a rich kid from Brentwood who took and took and took until he took a life, took 2 lives, right? And so I think that it's a good strategy to say something. I mean, I think we've all seen kind of like the scrum that is at CCB. That's the courthouse where this is happening, in terms of where everybody sees. And I don't know the optics for it. Which would it be best to do it at a press conference and somewhere that's organized? Because one of the advantages the prosecution has is when they do their press conference, it's in the stage and everyone gets to sit down and there's good lighting, as opposed to walking in as an attorney with your briefcase and you're surrounded by reporters. But there should be some way to communicate a defense to the public that wants to hear a defense and kind of go from there.
All right, so I appreciate Ambrosio for talking with me. As always, appreciate you guys for watching. I will have the latest from Los Angeles and keep you posted on everything that happens with the hearing. All right, talk to you guys later. Hey, guys.
All right. Go back to the one we were watching before.
Control. TMZ broke the story. Nick was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and there are issues regarding his meds that could lead to a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. So look, they put that out there a while ago, and I've called it out too. To me, that's an absolute PR play. And we've had lawyers on who spoke about it, Kim. They 2 attorneys came on that both, because they taped it before that came out, both agreed that's not going to play. It's not going to play. It's still a very difficult thing to do. Oh, well, the meds made me do it, as Kim just said. No, that's not going to be a good enough excuse for this. But maybe that's what Alan's implying. He's letting them have that sort of defense as a way of like, yeah, they got some more. Wait till you hear it. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, Alan was like, this is bullshit. This isn't going to work. He's guilty. Take a plea. Who knows? But that to me, given what we're seeing, that's my guess. That's my speculation. But I think if Alan was really as confident and wasn't trying to maybe force some sort of plea deal for Nick to take, maybe he wouldn't have gotten fired. You know what I'm saying, Kim? Maybe there was a version of this where he was trying to get Nick to say, you're guilty, bro. The best you're going to get is some sort of plea deal that was not nearly good enough in Nick's mind. And Nick was like, adios, coupled with the fact that then it sounds like Alan found some reason why he's unable to, exit the case, stay on the case rather. And now this is where we are. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that this is gonna. I agree with the district attorney. What do you think? Do you think having a different defense lawyer will make it easier for him to not be found guilty by a jury?
No, not on part of what is sticking out to me, and I see the argument of people saying it's possible, he's innocent, it's possible, the insanity, all those types of things. But the fact that the state of California felt it severe enough to claim special circumstances and to go for what?
Look at this. It's got Britney bitch in the background. Who's this? There's more Britney? Who's this? This woman has a thing for Britney, perhaps. Alfie? Alfie Ralphie? Interesting. Interesting indeed.
We're going to call the DP. That's not normal in the state of California. And I don't think they could have gone before a judge and demanded that and had that accepted if they did not have evidence to back it up. Which makes me think they've got a lot, and they had a lot then, and they likely still are getting more. It's all going to it's going to be about the evidence. It's 100% going to be about the evidence. And that's it. If your evidence is there that this is what happened and this is what he did, and he can't disprove that, then it's over. right? And I feel like as much as they're going to do everything in their power to not have the jury be influenced, you still have people in Los Angeles. You still have people that are familiar with who the Reiners are. There's going to be, I think, some assumptions against him at the beginning of this, even if they search for a jury of people that claim to be impartial. I think there's still going to be something. It's going to be a tough one. And if they can prove that, hey, he took these substances along with these substances and he was there and he booked the hotel room and blah, 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 blah. I mean, here's a whole bunch of stuff from his past of how he's manipulated people to get what he wants. Like, I mean, and juries tend to not like insanity pleas as well. So I don't think this is I don't think it's looking good for him. That's my opinion.
I did go over some Jumpsuit Pablo before. And I don't know. I wasn't that impressed with him, the ones I did see. But maybe we'll give him one more chance.
Nick Reiner has just lost his only hope of winning his court case, as well as the one thing that would make him survive in prison. Everyone he had in his corner is finally abandoning him, and his future in prison looks dark and dangerous. I'll explain everything. Let's get started.
It's like he's doing some ASMR here as well with a cat. And that reminds me of Westworld music.
So just today, on Wednesday, Nick Reiner's lawyer, super high profile, one of the biggest criminal defense lawyers there ever was and is, Alan Jackson, withdrew from his case.
He's got a face for radio and a voice made for print.
Today. So now his arraignment hearing is rescheduled for February 23rd. And you can see in this article here, it says the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office will now take over for Jackson and his co-counsel, both of whom stepped down. Deputy Public Defender Kimberly Green will represent Nick Reiner, who will remain in custody until the new hearing date. He is being held without bail. Ooh-wee. That's rough, buddy. Anybody who knows anything about any of this knows. If you're hoping to go to trial or just navigate any type of direction dealing with a murder charge and you have a public defender, you're done. It's over. That's a fact. It's kind of already been determined. I guarantee you, and they're not allowed to say it, they're not allowed to utter a word of it outside of that office, but I guarantee you, the public defender, the prosecutor, the solicitor, the judge, everybody pretty much knows what the outcome is going to be with Nick Reiner already. Unless some crazy piece of information or evidence gets introduced along the way. That being said, Nick Reiner doesn't have much hope of avoiding prison. Now, when he goes to prison, I made a video because if you're new here, I do have to say, I've done 10 years in state prison myself. I know exactly how it works. I know all the ins and outs. I've seen hundreds of people just like Nick Reiner. I've seen it, and I've seen what happens. I've saw what happens to them. Nick Reiner, when he goes to prison, it's not going to be an easy prison. It's going to be a scary prison because he's going to go to a more of a maximum security prison. Because
and in the prisons, people divide by their race. The blacks stay together, the whites stay together, Hispanics stay together. There could be, of the whites, there can be breaking down into Aryans versus what else might be there? There could possibly be Irish or Italian.
Of his charges and his sentence. Now he's going to go there and inmates are not going to care that he killed his parents. Why would they care? I've seen comments, oh, they're going to get him for killing Rob Reiner. Well, who? Is there like a big gang leader in there who was like a huge Rob Reiner fan and like loved his movies? And so it's like a personal vendetta. Why would any inmate care that this guy killed his parents? What are these inmates in there for? Donating too much money to charity? I mean, what do you think? So nobody's, they don't really care what he did, but they are going to care who he is. And the one thing that was going to save him in there and maybe even give him a little bit of influence and power and allow him to live some, as luxurious of a life that you can live behind bars, which, trust me, I've been there. And I have nowhere near Nick Reiner money, if we're assuming that he's got access to these millions. I kind of did anything I wanted, kind of had everything I could want. I had girls. I had a cell phone to get on social media. I had a TV. I had meals being cooked specifically for me in the kitchen and brought to me. I had, prison-made alcohol, which is like moonshine. I had, anything I wanted. So if you have enough money, it's not really that bad of a life if you're forced to spend that life in prison. He's not going to get to live that life now, because what this tells me is his lawyer, Alan Jackson, said he had no choice. It was out of his hands, and he had absolutely no choice but to step down as Nick Reiner's attorney. What does that tell me? Yeah, it's not your choice if Nick Reiner has money or not enough to pay you. And you're not going to do it for free. You did have one choice, and that choice would be, I'll represent you for free. Alan Jackson's not going to do that. No lawyer's going to do that.
Just because a large group of people like someone, you ever heard the expression, be careful when following the masses? Sometimes the M is silent.
Unless it's a shoe-in and you'll get some type of publicity off of it. So, looks like Nick Reiner has had his funds cut off from the family, from inheritance, from everything. Anybody who might have ever helped him, his sister, other family members, they've all turned their back on him. He has nothing. He's broke. He's got zero zilch. Good. And now you have lost the one thing that could have changed your entire prison experience, because I don't care what crime you committed, if you have enough money, you could have decapitated a newborn baby. If you have enough millions and enough money, you can still live like a king back there. You think inmates got morals that are that strong? Mind you, we're talking about people who also did terrible things to other people. That's why they're there. They're character. I don't care about your $2 million. You can keep it. I'm going to beat you up because you hurt a baby or whatever. Does that sound realistic, or does it sound like, maybe that baby had it coming? Who knows? Maybe that baby deserved it. Anyways, here's where you can send that $2 million. Everybody's got a price, and people in prison are not the most morally strong. So the only way you can navigate and control your destiny in prison is if you have enough money. Now Nick Reiner seems to have no money, so he has no control. They won't care about the crimes he committed, but they will care about the fact that you're a weak, physically unthreatening, scared white guy who has lived a privileged nepotism lifestyle. and you are totally out of your element. You are shaking in your boots, and we can pretty much.
So here's the other thing, though. I've wondered, though, in a celebrity kind of case like this, I wonder if he would get put in a separate kind of place. I know when law enforcement goes to jail, they get put in separate places sometimes because, for example, if you're a crooked cop, they don't send you to general population because you would be a target. To be a target, so to protect the former cop, the crooked cop, they go to a different wing. Now, with Nick, here's another story. I remember telling this story the last time we were listening to him. The guards. The guards are the ones that tell the other prisoners, especially if there's a child offender, they let everyone know because they want the prisoners to do prisoner justice in a way that the regular courts just don't. And I always know there was a buddy of mine who is now passed away. He told me, he's the one who told me about that story, where there was someone that when he went to jail, yep, that's what they say. This guy, he messes with kids. And so what they want them to do is to fuck them up.
Much make you do anything we want you to do. They're going to capitalize on that. Now, if he doesn't have money, what are they going to do? Well, first of all, inmates, they're going to realize the status of this kid, whether he has $1 million, whether he has not even 1 cent. They're going to assume, this is where ignorance comes in from just stupid criminals. Ignorantly, we're going to assume, yeah, maybe you didn't inherit your daddy's fortune, but you got connections in Hollywood. You can call somebody and ask them for $10,000 to give us. So that's the first move they're going to do. They're going to approach him and really try to feel him out. Maybe even do it in a friendly way. Hey, man, what's up? Oh, man, yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, so blah, blah. And they're going to get information out of him, and they're really going to try to dig and see.
So my thoughts would be, they'll certainly try to exploit him for what they can, but will there be anything that they can exploit from him? What celebrities or folks are going to try to say, oh, yes, let's give Nick $10,000 to pay off his abusers in jail? Who's going to do that? Probably nobody. So I think his level of connections now, they might discover that he doesn't really have many anymore.
Does he still have connections with rich, famous, wealthy people in Hollywood who might, out of pure pity, spare him 5-10 grand? Is there anybody that you could give any kind of sob story to give you a couple $1,000s, which a couple $1,000 is like striking oil in a field to these inmates?
Wow.
You know how many ramen noodles?
So I'm someone that back in the day, had a narcissistic parent who was also probably on the spectrum too. It's one of the rare cases where it could have been comorbid. But, I had CPTSD, but also it was because of undiagnosed autism. So I was undiagnosed autism, what they used to consider Asperger's, but they don't call it that anymore. They just call it part of the autistic spectrum. And then in high school, started self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. And eventually, opiates were my favorite. And I went to methadone and heroin, went to rehab by the time I was 19 years old. And I always tell the joke, have you even lived if you haven't disappointed your entire family by the time you're 19? And after that, I got on Suboxone, which actually did probably save my life because it was a bridge. It helped me to see that I could live each day without running to Camden or something like that. Because my baseline level of consciousness before I realized I was on the spectrum was just so awful. I wanted to jump out of my skin because I had severe anxiety. But the issue was I didn't recognize it for what it was. I didn't know it was severe anxiety because you just don't know. If this is your normal, severe anxiety is your normal. So eventually what happened for me is I went to the 12-step programs. I got clean. But then I realized there were still issues because I still had severe depression. I was still undiagnosed on the autism spectrum. And I still had suicidal idealizations while clean. And I was in great shape and everything. So I was like, well, what the hell is going on with me? And then I finally figured it out. And there were times I used to think I was borderline, but not borderline. Probably definitely had a CPTSD in there too. But then I finally found a supplement routine in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. And it took a long time for me to get to the routine I have now. It took years, by the way. But slowly but surely, I added more. And now I have a pretty extensive routine. If someone were to look at my routine today, they'd probably say I'm crazy. But I would say to them, well, if you knew what I was dealing with before, you wouldn't think I was crazy at all. It's been a really night and day difference for me. And I consider myself extremely lucky. I'm extremely lucky I've gotten through it because like I can relate to some of Nick Reiner's situation back in the day. It's not good. The difference between Nick Reiner and myself is he didn't find his way out. He didn't find his way out. And I don't know why he didn't find his way out. It seems like he didn't have the willingness. It didn't seem like he had the willingness to do it. It takes willingness. What happened to me was I was tired of negative consequences, and that was the reason I quit using in my early 20s. I was just tired. I was tired of being sick and tired, as they say.
That's going to buy them. That's the first thing they're going to do. They're going to play it friendly. If he's not really, I don't really want to talk. Okay, I guess you don't understand how serious this is. Okay, let's get a little aggressive and a little violent. Let's put our hands on you a little bit. Let's shake you up a little bit. Hey, listen, man. Okay, I don't think you understand. Answer the question, Get a little more forceful. See if that will get some information. They want information. They want to know what resources he has because that is a foreign concept to the average inmate. I'm just a guy. I grew up in the streets, in the ghetto, in the bad parts of town, and I'm in here for shooting gang members or just selling dope and just living that. I don't know anything about Hollywood. You killed someone after you went to Conan O'Brien's A-list celebrity holiday party? Okay. Like, they don't know anything about that. They don't know what resources you have. They're trying to figure out what resources you have, what do you have available, who would send you some money. That would be a drop in the ocean, a drop of water in the ocean to this person, but to these inmates, that's like hitting the lottery. So they're going to try to figure that out, whether friendly or forcefully. They want to figure that out. If he has anybody who might spare him anything, he's going to get it. And it's going to go to them. And he'll survive for just a little while.
So I'll tell you this, Turtle. My routine pretty much takes care of it. Not because there's two parts of it, right? They say people on the spectrum, it has something to do with the GABA system. And they also have less glutathione in their system. So some of the supplements that I take, NAC and SAMe, they address that. And then the GABA, I take a GABA supplement too, that helps as well. So I consider that physical anxiety. But then there's still the anxieties that normal people can feel. Public speaking, making videos, etc. But the more you do them, the more you get comfortable doing them. I used to be much more awkward doing these lives, especially live. I was really awkward doing it. It just felt uncomfortable. But I worked through it. And it helped that I have the supplement routine too, but just having the supplement routine wasn't enough to not still be nervous and have anxiety doing lives. It's a combination. So many things are a combination of things you have to do. It's not just one thing. So there's the physical element of supplementation, your mind, body stuff. But then there's also learning and doing new skills and actually having to conquer your fears in a way. And that's one of the reasons I do these lives, because there was a time when it was the one thing that scared me more. It was easy for me to make shorts. It's easy for me to record videos, but doing lives challenged me. So I said, you know what? I got to focus on that fear and overcome it. And it's why they say the obstacle is the way, as Ryan Holiday would say, or the choice that scares us is often the best choice. So that's what I've done.
It's a big if. If he doesn't have that, if he does have that, It'll last as long as that resource lasts. When that resource runs out, same result as if he had never had a resource in the first place. Now you're useless to everyone. You are useful to nobody. So what do we care? What do we care what happens to you? What do we care about who does anything to you? Why would anyone even step in and stop anyone from doing anything at all to you for any reason? That's dangerous. That's a dangerous lack of contribution to bring to a society within the walls of concrete that is prison. And so here's his next best bet. You're going to have to do grunt work. You are at the bottom of the food chain because you are not physically threatening. Yes, I understand. He took a knife and he cut the throats of his parents in their sleep.
And think of the prisoners as the scorpion and the frog story. The prisoners are going to be like the scorpion. They're going to do what they do. And when they see someone who's more weak and feeble, as Nick probably is now, they're going to see him as a mark. And they're not going to be able to help themselves. They're going to go and exploit. They're going to do what the scorpion does. It just is what it is. The only way this doesn't happen is if, because of who he is, they put Nick in a different place. They put Nick in a different wing. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, though. But what do you think, chat? Do you think they're going to put him in a little bit of a celebrity wing? Or are they going to throw him to the wolves?
The prison weapon of choice, the predominant weapon in prison, a knife. A lot of people don't have the guts to take a knife and end someone's life with it. He does. Does that get him a little bit of status? Yes. Is he a large guy? He's well over 6 feet. He's well over 200 pounds. Yes. But his 200 pounds don't look like another guy's 200 pounds. His 200 pounds looks like someone chewed up a wad of bubble gum and formed it into the shape of a human. His 200 pounds look like a bag of dirty laundry. There's no muscle. There's no capability. There's no, physical threat. Yeah, he's tall, but I mean, so what? He doesn't know what to do with it. He slit 2 people's throat who probably had a few drinks because they just left this party and passed out in the bed. And he cut their throats. What this will do, that knowledge, what that will do, he will never be able. When he gets put into general population, he will never have a roommate. He will never have a cellmate. Everyone will refuse to have him as a cellmate. And yeah, you can do that. Is that part of the policy that inmates are allowed to refuse a cellmate? No. But if you think prisons operate off of the handbook and the policy, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Now, I know people that have been prison guards. I'd be very curious what prison guards think of his channel here. That would be an interesting perspective.
He's not going to be allowed to go in anyone's cell because I don't care if it's, a guy who looks like, I don't care if, you're the biggest bodybuilder in the world and you're a 9th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't care if you're the UFC heavyweight champion of the world and you're in prison. Nobody is going to be in a cell with someone who has proven that they will wait for you to fall asleep and then cut your throat. Because you will never know peace. You will never feel safe to fall asleep. Even though I would beat the crap out of you, I could pull your head off of your shoulders. Face to face, man to man. But the second I fall asleep, you have proven.
But here's the thing. In prison, there's tons of people you wouldn't want to be your roommate in prison. There's the CP offenders, child offenders, grave, all sorts. You fill in the blank. There's a big chunk of them as people that you wouldn't want to be there with. Now, what are the acceptable crimes in prison? Probably gang violence, right? You kill another gang member, provided it wasn't in some kind of weird way. All right, that's probably acceptable. Theft is probably okay, depending on who you stole from, especially if it's an establishment. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can do that. But now theft of someone that they know, theft from a gang member, that maybe not so much now. But again, are you going to go to prison for theft from a gang member? Probably not, because they're not going to rat on you. But it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. It's an interesting thing to think about.
That you have tendencies to slice people's throat while they're catching some Z's. All the muscles, all that size, all that strength, all that violence, all that experience, all that anything you got, it don't matter once you're asleep and your roommate hops off that top bunk and puts that knife in your throat. So no one is going to know peace. And your cell is like your home. That's your home. As sad as and pitiful as that sounds, that's your home. I need to be able to come into my home within prison and feel safe. I can take my shoes off. I can relax. I can kick back. I can read a book. I don't need to feel this tension with my cellmate. I don't need to feel, I can relax and just let out a deep breath. My door's locked. I don't got to worry about anybody else in the cell block who I might have, I need to have a fight with tomorrow, whatever. I need peace. You're not going to get peace with this guy because he likes to kill people in their sleep. And that's that. So no one is going to, I don't care how tough they are, no one's going to want to be his cellmate. Now, it's not unheard of to have someone in a 2-person cell by themselves because they are not fit to have a cellmate. I don't care what you read, what you heard, what you see on the website. I'm telling you now, I've done 10 years. I've seen it time and time again. Every cell, they got 2 people in there, maybe 3. There are plenty of instances where there is a cell with just 1 person in it, and he's got 3 beds in there, and it's just him because he's not fit to have anyone in his cell with him. It happens. They don't broadcast that on the news. They don't put on the way, hey, just to let you guys know, we got a real dangerous guy over here and we don't know what to do with him. We're not equipped to handle him, and protect your loved ones by putting him in a cell with them. So we just gave him his own cell. They don't update you guys on this stuff, but this is the reality of how things work in prison. And so I could see him still being in a very dangerous cell block by himself in a cell, and he is going to come out at certain times. And when he comes, that's just a small thing. He's not going to have a cellmate simply because no one's going to want him in their cell. We don't want you. Not only because you're a psycho and you might slice my throat in my sleep when I'm vulnerable and I can't defend myself, but also because you bring no benefit. You cannot bring food into this room. I'm a big, strong, scary guy in a cell. I have no one who cares about me out there, and they don't send me any money. This little white guy who's privileged in Hollywood comes in, and he gets thousands of dollars, and he gets all this food, and he can buy tobacco and all this contraband, drugs, cell phones. Yeah, come in my room. Please come in my room. You're my buddy now. You're my best friend. Nobody's going to mess with you. Hey, all y'all. Anybody messes with him, you got to get through me. Nobody's going to mess with him. But guess what? All this stuff that you're able to buy, you're going to share with me.
And here's the thing, though, too. People might try to be nice to Nick at first as kind of a long con, right? So you're like maybe someone that's maybe intelligent, that's going to do a chess move. Oh, let me make friends with this guy. And then try to get him to willingly give me things later down the line. Or help me to use whatever connections he's got left. Or, even just living where he lives and knowing who he knows and living under the same roof as Rob Reiner, there might be things There might be tricks of the trade. Maybe they'll be like, hey, bud, your dad, was he buddies with Epstein? Did you do it for that reason? And so, again, you never know. You never know what angle they're going to play with it here.
And now I've got it made. So people would love to have him in his cell, except You're a nighttime throat cutter. Can't trust you. You're not going to be in my cell. Other than that,
So Steve Miller would say, you're a midnight toker. Jumpsuit Pablo says, you're a midnight throat cutter.
it doesn't, that's the only time they'd be vulnerable. So when we're coming out onto the common area, but they call it the ROG, but everyone comes out of their cells and there's a big cafeteria looking section of these prison cell blocks. And they all come out for a certain amount of time between a certain time frame to mingle, play cards, play chess, make phone calls, do whatever, watch TV, whatever. They come out and that's where the extortion happens. Except he's got nothing to pay. He's got nothing to extort. He's got no money. He's got no value. He's not a threat. He's not somebody who is, he's going to go up and just beat people up and just be a physical force. So you're not valuable to a gang because they can't utilize you to be a threatening force. So you don't have value in that way.
So think, when you're in prison, it's everything is Machiavellian in prison. Everything is about power and what people can get from you. So in a way, prison forces people to be Machiavellian. It's pretty hard to just mind your own business. Now, there's stories. Joe Rogan has had people on his show. There's this one guy who did attempt to mind his own business. And the only reason why he was able to is because he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But they still tried to come after him anyway. They put kites on him, as they say. And they tried to come at him. And he basically killed 2 people that had to come at him. But after that, people left him alone. And the guards don't intervene. When prisoners are attacking prisoners, they think to themselves sometimes, I'm not stepping in this. I want to come home today. Whoever wins is whoever wins. And the guards would come up to him later and say, oh, we really respect what you did there. This episode's on Joe Rogan. It's from years ago. But there's 2 guys that were a guest at the same time with Rogan. And he tells that story. But it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing. But anyway. So everyone in prison's Machiavellian to an extent. It's just how it is.
If you did, they'd take good care of you, real good care of you. Oh, you hungry? Here's $20 of snacks, ramen noodles, Snicker bars, chips, anything, cookies, anything, honey buns, anything you want, soap. What do you need? Just make sure if anyone ever messes with us, you're ready to go stab them to death, You're the muscle. He's not the muscle. He's the flab. So he's got nothing to offer there. What does he have to offer? Nothing. And when you have nothing to offer, the only thing you have to offer is your booty hole. Not in that way. Not in the assault type of way. Your booty hole and other parts of your body. And I mean it in this way. Smuggling in drugs for influential gangs. And if you do it and you do it successfully, they will keep you safe because you are an asset. You are an asset because you're the guy who's willing to take it. We don't want to risk our important gang members doing this. We'd rather use you, somebody you don't have anything to offer anybody. Here's the one way you could become important in prison. Smuggle this in. And if you get caught, who cares? Because you're not an important member of our gang. We're not losing anything. You're just a freaking pawn on this chessboard. But if you keep successfully bringing it in, well, we'll take care of you. We'll make sure nobody messes with you because now you're important and you bring value to us because you're bringing stuff into us. So that's the only thing he can hope for. The only way this man can survive in prison is by putting packages up his little wallet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. Hope you enjoyed. Hope this gave you some insight. And until the next update, I'll see you next time.
So I do think this one was better. That one was better than the other ones that I saw of his. More entertaining. Gave me more things to ponder. But, I mean, yeah, everyone's Machiavellian in jail. And I think you can catch psychopathic fleas in jail as well. jail is no place, and prison's no place to get better a lot of times. I think the only time it could possibly help is if you're a low-level criminal or druggie and it kind of scares you straight. But again, it's certainly no guarantee you're scared straight either. Not at all. Pablo, I watched about Brian Koberger. You haven't heard much about him recently. Actually, I've been seeing more stuff about him. I just haven't paid attention to it. All right, Danielle. Danielle's done her edibles and in her jammies. I see. Well, we're about to wrap up here anyway. But the announcements. Next week, Man Talks, Connor Beaton. Man Talks on YouTube, Man Talks on Instagram. Going to interview him about men's issues, becoming a better man. I'm reading his book right now. Following week, Dr. Salerno, just him and I this time, no other guests. We're going to go over his book, Cruelty by Nature. And then late January, Mike King and I, author of Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, we're going to have a chat as well. And I'm not sure. He wants to do it later in the evening. So I'm not sure he'll be down for a live, but we'll see. But if I do it that evening, there will be no live stream that night if it's just recorded. And then there's others. We'll see what else. I'm still in the process of getting back my Facebook. It's locked again. Holy mackerel, that's been such a headache. But I'm learning how to live without it. And I'm learning it was kind of just a big distraction as well. Like, yeah, I had a lot of followers on there. I had 197,000 followers. But in terms of the money, I wasn't getting that much money. I was getting per month, which is like hardly even a good week. So it was really tricky by Facebook and Meta. What they do is they give you just enough to keep you creating for their platform, but not a full-time income in any way. So I'm realizing now, if I get it back, if and when I get it back, I'll do some stuff, but I'm not going to waste as much time scrolling. I'll do maybe 2 posts a day and keep it at that. Yeah, but their customer service is awful. Yeah, mine too, Jen. It got me into the place where I was able to get through the day without going off the rails. Yeah, well, I got hacked. And it was partially my fault being hacked, honestly, because I was half asleep. I saw an email that said you need to update your Meta information for tax purposes. And it said Meta in the subject. I didn't look at the email it came from. And I clicked the link and it sent me to Facebook's page, or so I thought. And I put in my username and password. And then I got an email saying, "Oh, you trying to log in right now?" And I was. And the only tell that it was off is the location was from Chicago, not where I am. But since I was truly trying to log in, I said yes. But that was a fatal error. Fatal error. I was not in Chicago. I should have clicked no. I was thinking they would give me another, like a text. Oh, give us your text code, or is this you? But no, none of that. None of that. You have a good night, Wyndham. So they got in there, and this is what they do once they're in there. So they get in there. It's bad enough they're in your account, but then what they do is they remove you as a financial administrator from your own personal profile. And this is something even the Instagram folks didn't know could happen. Like, you can't be removed as an administrator from your own profile, but yes, you can. You can. That's the first thing they do. And when they remove you as a financial administrator, you can no longer change any of your financial information. It's actually asinine that you're able to even do that. You shouldn't be able to remove yourself from your own personal profile as a financial administrator. Like, why would anyone do that? But you're able to do it, and they did. And luckily, I didn't get dinged for any money. They didn't find a way to divert it by payment that they pay me. But they have locked my account, and my monetization is now restricted on there for my safety. So it's going to take me time to get the payout I would have normally gotten. And I might not get paid out in the future now either until I get it squared away. So it's been a very icky, very freaking icky situation. You have a good night, beautiful. They tried to, George, but the one thing Facebook did do well for me is they locked my account, so they couldn't do anything. So that part was good. But I'm still a long way away from getting where I need to be with it because I'm still locked out of it. I had to send them information from my bank. I had to make videos to confirm who I am. So we'll see. I'll keep you all updated on that. And let me know, chat, if you want me to go over the TikTok scam story tomorrow, because there's probably going to be no new, or at least not much new Nick Reiner news. So we'll see. Yeah, it was bad, Colo. It was not good. I was a very unhappy camper on Sunday. Since then, the pill has gone down. It's been a bitter pill, but I always try to ask myself, what if this happened for you, not to you? And if someone would have said that to me Sunday, I would have told them to shut the fuck up. But now that it's, what day is this? Wednesday? Now I'm like, well, maybe there's something to learn from the situation. Always something to learn. And I think, well, I've learned the priorities, right? It's like, okay, you get it back. Don't waste so much time on there. Still post, but don't mindlessly scroll and waste time with it. Stick mostly to YouTube. That's what I've learned. But again, it'd be unfortunate. Yes, you're right, beautiful. It is Thursday. It'd be unfortunate to lose it forever. I mean, even if they only pay me $5,000 a year, I mean, still $5,000 more, right? For not that much effort. I try, Rose City. I've had a lot of bad things happen. It reminded me of when I used to crash cars or be arrested or have a big gambling loss or a severe breakup. Losing my Facebook felt like that. I was like, oh. And I was even more mad because it was partially my fault. I've messed up. I didn't pay attention. I was half asleep. And for some reason, I chose when I was half asleep to do something productive and update my tax information. Oh, serves me right. Correct, Colo. That's where they get you, right? It's not enough. But they've gotten people, they're making more and more people creators because they've realized we don't have to pay people that much to get them creating for our platform. Unlike YouTube. If the numbers on YouTube, if you do good on YouTube, you'll do 1,000 times better than you will on Facebook. So that's part of their trap. Yeah, I mean, that's more of an ego thing though, right? That's what it was. I realized it wasn't even as much of the business part. It was just that it made me feel special. I was like, oh, I'm special. And it like stroked my ego to have that many people. And that's a large part of what it was, if I'm being honest. And that's like going viral can be addicting. It's kind of like a drug in a way. So, those are the things I try to learn. I learn from all of it and try to come back at a better, stronger version of myself. And I use it as an opportunity to share with all of you. Share what I've learned from it. But I was certainly not a happy camper on Sunday. That's for sure. I was devastated. But somehow now I've turned it around. I feel okay now. But I was not feeling okay before. Thank you, Susanna. Yeah, and that's absolutely what it is, beautiful. It's definitely a dopamine hit. I mean, when you get a video that hits hundreds of thousands to millions of views, you feel pretty cool. You're like, oh, I'm pretty awesome. But it's similar to gambling in that way, where you keep on chasing it. And you tell yourself, well, this is my business, which it is. It is. And so it's tricky when it's true. Like, it's your business. This is how you find coaching clients. But that's the other thing I learned about the narcissistic abuse space. It's too sporadic to just be having a full-time income from that space for a couple reasons. For one, you can't charge enough really to make sure you're going to be able to make a full-time income, especially if you don't have like credentials. Like if you're not a licensed professional and you're taking cash like out of pocket, you're just not going to be able to charge enough because the space, it doesn't warrant that much money. I mean, 150 an hour to maybe 200, but that's pushing it. That's pushing it in the narcissistic abuse space. And yeah, I am feeling better. I appreciate that. And the other thing is, like, Alex Hormozy says something that I agree with. He says, if you want to like do well financially, you solve rich people's problems, whatever they are. And he's right about that. If you try to solve poor people's problems first, you're probably going to struggle. Now, there's some exceptions. Netflix, for example. You do something that you can distribute broadly enough. Now, that's the exception, right? You can get millions and millions of people paying you whatever it is per month for Netflix. Okay, you've done it. But most people, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to scale it that way. So, rich people's problems. That's usually a better way to go. But all right, everybody. About time to go over and out here. Thanks for everyone for participating. We got a great flock of black sheep here. It's a great community here too. So I'm glad it's here for you all. And I'm glad to be a part of it as well. And thank you, Songbits, for modding. I think Jimmy is gone, but thanks to Jimmy for modding as well. You have a good night, Heather. Well, I'm getting you to think, Songbits. I love it. So you have a good night as well too, George. Till next time, I'll be back tomorrow night. And I am feeling better. It took me a day or two, but I'm on top of it. Zuck is a freaking reptile. I mean, they should have yeah, I like that. Tonic, I love that. Beautiful. I love it. I mean, they should have people you can talk to. If you're on Facebook, they should be able to have locations, people you can talk to on the phone, but they don't make it easy. All right. You got it, Susanna. Jensky, good night as well. Ellie, good night. Danielle, good night. Over and out to the rest of you as well. Liberty. Colo. Have a good night, gentlemen and ladies. Ladies and gentlemen.